A pale dawn crept across the twins, the dim light sliding like cold water over moss-slick stone and the twin towers that flanked the green fork. Lord Walder Frey's banners, mud-brown field, and pale blue chevrons, hung limp in the hush before sunrise. Within the courtyard, ravens muttered in iron cages, and the smell of damp straw clung to the inner walls. All seemed still, but the old lord's sleep was thin and fretful. He did not trust stillness. He rose from his hard feather mattress long before the servants came, shrugging his skinny shoulders into a frayed wool cloak. The floors were chill beneath his bare feet. Across the water, unseen in the river fog that blanketed the northern bank, men of the wolves arrayed for war. Great John Umber had sworn that no fray would bar their path again. In the dark he had paced like a bear on a taut chain, cursing softly whenever a laggard infantryman splashed too loud through threads. Around him, the men of House Umber, House Glover, and House Manderley stood knee-deep in mist, tight fists on spear hafts or axe handles. They had slipped past sentries the night before, occupying the river island half a league north. Now they waited for the signal. Catelyn Stark felt every heartbeat echo in her throat as she watched the towers from the bank. A raw wind tugged the hood from her auburn hair, and she let it fall, the cold cutting her cheeks. She prayed to river gods she had once known as a girl, prayed to the old gods she had married, and begged silently that no songs would be sung of children dying here, beneath a treacherous banner. Beside her, Robb's direwolf ghost, snow-pale silent, stalked the waterline. Robb Stark himself knelt near the ferry chain, leather gloves slick with morning dew. He pressed a gloved palm to the soaked earth and tasted the copper tang of river fog in each breath. The twins blocked more than a crossing. They choked the North's hope. Walder Frey had delayed too long, demanded too cruel a price. So Robb had chosen the sword. A horn's low moan drifted from the distant island. One note only. Great John's men surged forward. They'd constructed rafts from stripped pine and lashed barrels, silent as drifting ghosts. The first shafts flew from northern new longbows, whispering over dark water. Guards toppled from parapets before they could cry. On the western tower, a lantern shattered, spilling oil and flame that hissed against damp stone. Panic spread faster than fire ever could. Freymen stumbled half-dressed from gatehouses, some gripping swords, others clutching candle stubs. They were still blinking sleep from their eyes when the first of Umber's axes bit through the outer door. Oak splintered. Robb was already on his horse, gray wind whipping his cloak behind him. His sworn shield Daisy Mormont spurred beside him. The northern cavalry hadn't waited for a gate. They thundered straight into river shallows, fording where the green fork branched over gravel bars. Water sheeted from Destrier's flanks. Inside the castle yard, Walder Frey's sons argued beneath the arched gallery. Ser Stevron, the eldest, barked orders to form shield walls, but none obeyed. Confusion reigned. It was not supposed to be war this morning. They had promised a parley at sunset. By the time Walder Frey descended his narrow stair, his courtyard was already lost, steel flashing like summer lightning between stalls and well. He tottered, wheezing, to a vantage, and saw the direwolf banner rise over the eastern gate. His skinny shoulders sagged. For a heartbeat he thought to shuffle back to bed, hide beneath furs, and claim dotage. But age had given him cunning in place of courage. Better yield swift than burn slow. When the sun cleared the fog, Robb Stark stood atop the ridgeline path between towers, sword unbloodied but armor spattered from others' struggles. He gazed down the long straight of the King's Road shimmering southwards. Catelyn moved to his side, eyes red from the smoke that still curled from charred thatch. "He will come, mother," Robb said. She nodded, though her heart doubted. Tywin Lannister was a man to weigh wounds in coin, not in conscience. Yet word would race along the road. Walder Frey had bent the knee, his grandchildren offered as hostages, his bridge kept open for northern hosts. And in the great hall of the twins, Lord Walder, wild-eyed, quavering, had sworn fealty before Hearttree and Septon, both binding his house by every god that ruled men. While Levy secured the walls, Robb sent ravens to River Run, to White Harbor, to Moat Cailin still holding the neck, and one daring bird to King's Landing itself. A parchment sealed with the direwolf sigil pressed in red wax. Robb Stark of House Stark, King in the North, demands safe passage for envoys of peace. Any harm to our messengers will be considered an act of war beyond redemption. The gold cloaks won't trouble ravens, Galbart Glover had muttered. But lions eat birds when they can. Yet Catelyn saw a deeper game in her son's eyes. Robb meant to force Tywin to march. The twins commanded the quickest passage north of the Trident, and now the bridge belonged to Winterfell. If Tywin ignored that, he left his own rear exposed should Edmure's veterans come riding hard from Riverrun. Grey wind patted across the yard, muzzle stained with grease from a broken larder door. Stewed lamb meant for fray tables. The dire wolf's presence cowed every prisoner. Not a blade moved against northern backs while the beast roamed. Dawn faded to full morning. The clang of hammers rang through vaults as blacksmiths' bent helms dented in assault back to shape. Bodies wrapped in linen were laid in wagons bound for quiet barrows. Fewer northern dead than Robb had feared. Freys had surrendered quickly once old Walder grew pale at the thought of losing his precious crossing forever. In the solar that afternoon they gathered. Catelyn, the blackfish Brynden, still wiping gore from his blade. Great John Umber, whose laugh shook wall sconces. Roose Bolton, gray-eyed and calm, his gloved hands unstained. And Robb, tall despite his youth, a mantle of direwolf fur across his shoulders. "The ravens are loose," Robb said, "and we hold the bridge. Lord Tywin must answer us now." "Them?" "He will answer with steel," Bolton murmured, "unless we show him a prize worth his honor." Greyjohn grinned, displaying a chipped tooth. "We could mail him Frey's head in a box. Might buy us a day or two." Catelyn shivered. "We are not butchers." Robb's gaze lingered on the window slit, where the trident flashed gold in late sun. "Father taught me that peace comes from strength shown, not savagery done. If Tywin wants his daughter returned unmarred to the capital, he will parley, and if he parley, he must ride north." Bolton's mouth twitched. "You mean to trade Queen Cersei for our own sisters? And for Sansa and Arya both, if the gods are good?" Robb said. "But more, I mean to make Lord Tywin cross the Green Fork and kneel where Walder knelt. To bend a lion to the wolf's will, that will echo through the Seven Kingdoms." Far to the south, drums echoed in the vaulted halls of Harrenhal. Tywin Lannister watched dust motes spin in a shaft of light and wondered if they were spies of fate. Ravens had come at dawn, a cloud of ill news. Renly Baratheon slain at Storm's End, leaving Lord Stannis resurgent along the coast. Balon Greyjoy raiding the western shores with black sails. And now, Frey treachery, or Frey incompetence, had handed the twins to Robb Stark. Sir Kevan read the letter a second time, jaw tight. "They claim few Freys killed." Stark granted quarter. "Quarter," Tywin repeated, rolling the word like grit between his teeth. "The boy's too soft. He believes mercy buys loyalty." Kevan folded the parchment. "It bought him the bridge, brother." For once Tywin had no reply. He rose, crimson cloak swirling, and strode to a map table crowded with wooden blocks. The twins lay northeast and north again, a narrow choke. To bypass it, Lannister armies must wade the Red Fork or march to Seaguard and trust ships of uncertain allegiance. Every path cost weeks he could ill spare. A soft cough sounded. Lord Varys emerged from shadow, plump hands steepled. "I fear young Robb Stark grows bold. His lords call him the Wolf King now. Songs ride on every wind." Tywin's golden gaze hardened. "Songs do not win wars, eunuchs. Sometimes they win hearts," Varys said. "And hearts move swords." Tywin dismissed him with a flick of gauntleted fingers. He turned to Sir Gregor Clegane, looming beneath black helm. "Gather, outriders. We ride for the twins at dawn. The boy wants a lesson in fear. We shall teach him." When Varys had gone, Kevan lowered his voice. "Joffrey grows restless in King's Landing. Cersei writes each day begging us to smash the northern host." Tywin's lips thinned. "Let her beg. Westeros bends to strength, not pleas. We will break Robb Stark upon his own bridge and send what's left of him in pieces." Yet the dawn that saw Tywin ride north also saw Edmure Tully's banners unfurl above Riverrun. Songs of Frey surrender reached the Riverlands overnight. Outriders carried Robb's call for allegiance. Edmure mustered every man not wounded, swelling the northern host by nearly 5,000. Old Tito's Blackwood pledged 200 bowmen. Sir Mark Piper offered his outriders to Harry Lannister scouts. At Moat Cailin, ravens brought hope to Bran Stark. The boy lord sat in a carved weirwood chair atop the gatehouse tower, Hodor at his back. When Maester Luwin read the message of the twins' capture, wild cheers rose among the garrison. Bran imagined Grey Wind standing on the battlements, howling triumph toward the neck. He tasted his brother's victory like honey on the air, though leagues of marsh divided them. Night fell on the twins beneath a harvest moon bright as polished bone. Torches lined the battlements, spears glinting. Lord Walder shuffled through his own corridors, with 2 guards and a steward carrying parchment. He would draft new marriage contracts. Freys thrived on marriages. His daughters would wear wolf pelts on their wedding nights. Better that than shrouds. In the gallery above the great hall, Robb paced alone. Below him, the captured Freymen dined beside their captors, an uneasy mingling. At the head of the long table, Catelyn spoke with the Blackfish, their voices low. She worried for her brother's safety. Edmure rode now to join them, but the roads crawled with lion scouts. Footsteps approached. Grey Wind emerged from shadow first, eyes pale as moonlit ice. Behind him, Roose Bolton. The leech lot of the Dreadfort bowed his head. "My liege," Bolton said. "Scouts report a host leaving Harrenhal. 20,000? Maybe more. They march day and night." "Oh." Robb's jaw tightened. "How many days?" 6. If the ford at Stonehenge holds. Less if Tywin rides before his baggage. We will meet him on our terms." Robb stared down at the Frey banners, now stark direwolves sewn hastily over them. "He will cross the Green Fork a conqueror or cross on his knees." Bolton's eyes betrayed nothing. "And if he will not kneel?" Robb's hand stroked Grey Wind's thick fur. "Then we make the river his grave." Tywin Lannister's vanguard reached the Red Fork on the 3rd day, where pale willows bent over a greasy current. Scouts whispered of twin towers now bristling with northern spears. He drove the army hard, but rain slowed wagons and swollen brooks forced detours. In muddy camps each night, rumors spread like mold. Robb Stark had wargs that walked invisible. Northern maids turned into weirwoods and spied on sleeping men. Frey lords were hanging their own cousins who spoke for the lion. The hound laughed at such tales, but small folk levies shivered. Tywin stamped out fear with sermons of gold and glory, yet even he felt the Riverlands tighten around him like a noose. The Starks had not broken. They had grown teeth. At dusk on the 5th day, the Lannister host glimpsed the Green Fork's glitter ahead, and beyond it, black shapes on the western bank. Campfires flickered like a serpent's eyes, thousands upon thousands. Between the armies, the river ran swift, spanned only by the stone bridge of the twins. Tywin rode to the bank, flanked by Kevan and Sir Adam Marbrand. Across the water, Robb Stark appeared on the opposite parapet, a direwolf's head standard above him. No words passed the span. Only the ravens overhead called. That night drums answered drums, echoing over dark water. Archers lit their arrows but did not loose. Soldiers stared into shadowed faces on the other bank, imagining death behind every glint. And in the silence between heartbeats, someone whistled a northern marching tune, haunting as wind through barrow mounds. Robb slept little. He dreamed of snowflakes falling on a field of red leaves, and beneath those leaves his father's voice whispered, "Hold fast. Winter watches." He woke before dawn, heart racing, and summoned his captains. "We cannot hold a bridge against 20,000 forever," Galbart Glover warned. "We will not try," Robb answered. "We let them cross, then we close the jaws behind them." Roose Bolton's pale eyes narrowed. "A gamble, my liege." Robb smiled a wolf's smile. So was taking the twins. Yet, here we stand. At sunrise, horns blared from the northern shore. Deep, challenging. Tywin Lannister answered with a dozen trumpets. Columns of infantry advanced onto the bridge, shields aloft, crimson cloaks snapping like bloody banners. Halfway across they slowed. Arrows sprouted among them. Shot from the towers by Freys, eager to prove new-won loyalty. Panic rippled the ranks. But Lannister captains roared commands, and the columns surged forward to seize the eastern tower. Just as Tywin's knights thundered onto the bridge's midpoint, a second horn blew, this one from river shallows south of the crossing. Boats hidden beneath willow branches shoved off, rowing hard. They bore flankers, Manderly spearmen in scale mail, umber axemen roaring battle hymn. They struck the exposed Lannister flank with brutal suddenness. The bridge became a killing ground. Horses screamed and plunged over parapets. Men slipped on blood-slick stone. Tywin himself rode into the fray, longsword flashing. He carved a path toward the eastern tower, refusing to yield an inch. But arrows whistled from angles he could not see. Shafts fletched with gray feathers burying in gold-plated steel. On the western bank Robb unleashed his cavalry. The gate his men had wrenched 3 days earlier now served as drawbridge, slamming down across the bridge mouth. Northern riders poured over, Great John at their head, warhorn strapped to his saddle, laughing thunder. Catelyn watched from ramparts, breath caught. She saw her son's cloak streaming behind him, gray as storm clouds. He moved with the surety of youth and prophecy. Each stroke of his sword rang the fate of houses. Within hours, the bridge was theirs. Tywin's center broke, forced back onto the narrow span where numbers availed naught. When the lion banners fell, the river carried them away like rested teeth. Tywin fought until his arm trembled. Blood soaked his gauntlet where a northern spear had slipped past guard. Around him Kevin's horse lay dying, a shaft through its throat. Sir Adam Marbrand, helm caved by mace blow, knelt amidst corpses. A hush settled, pierced only by the river's rush below. Across the bridge Robb, stark dismounted, sword sheathed. Gray wind padded at his heel, muzzle red. Tywin raised his blade again, but the strength had gone from it. His men lay dead or bound. Arrows lined the walls behind the Stark boy, no gap for escape. Robb spoke, voice calm. My lord of Casterly Rock, riverlands bleed because of pride. Bend the knee and end it. Tywin's pride battled the pain in his arm. Gold steel weighed less than the name Lannister. Yet, in that moment, he saw the dire wolf, the bloody bridge, the harsh eyes of Northmen who had lost fathers at the Whispering Wood and brothers at the camps. They would kill him here, and Casterly Rock would scream, but no one would ride in time. He knelt. The stone was cold against armor dented by spear points. His sword clattered to the bridge. Robb Stark stepped forward, drawing a dagger. Some gasped, thinking he would take a head. Instead, he laid the blade flat across Tywin's pauldron and spoke the words of Guest right inverted. Swear now upon river, and stone and blood, spilled that Lannisters will withdraw from the north and the trident. Release my sisters, yield their claim upon my bannermen's lands, and pay recompense for each life lost. Tywin's voice rasped. I, Tywin of House Lannister, do so swear. On the riverbank Frey horns blew, the wolf banners dipped. A murmur rolled through both armies. Disbelief, relief, triumph, despair. And somewhere far off, a raven took wing for King's Landing, carrying the message that would shatter thrones and raise others. Evening wrapped the twins in violet hush. Fires guttered low. Smoke drifted into a star-bright sky. In the great hall, Tywin sat at the high table. Guest under truce, his wounded arm bandaged. Across from him, Robb drank mulled wine, eyes watchful. I will sign parchment at first light, Tywin said. My son Jaime. He remains your prisoner. He will be returned, Robb answered, when my sisters stand safe beneath my father's godswood in Winterfell. Tywin's fingers flexed around his cup. You bargain like a Lannister. I bargain like a Stark, Robb said. Who knows the cost of broken oaths? Outside, amid the ruins of the morning's battle, men of both sigils labored side by side, stacking fallen. A wary peace, yet peace. Catelyn walked the bridge alone, lantern in hand, and felt ghosts whisper of futures unimagined. If peace held, her girls would come home. Winterfell might see spring again. Yet she feared the tempest lurking beyond parchment and bows. A bent knee could straighten when blades were drawn elsewhere. Lions did not forget humiliation. She looked northward, toward the leagues of shadowed hills that led to Moat Cailin and the lands beyond. The air smelled of river water and fresh spilled blood. Somewhere in that scent she thought she could taste the first flakes of oncoming winter. Far away, in the throne room of the Red Keep, Joffrey Baratheon sat the Iron Throne and screamed at the messenger who knelt trembling before him. The king's voice cracked with rage. Queen Cersei, pale, clutched an arm of the dais. Varys watched with half-lidded eyes, and in the hush between shouts, a lone raven croaked from the rafters, unseen. The message it bore would reach them soon enough, written in Robb Stark's measured hand and sealed with wax colored like fresh spilled blood. And when it did, the realm would know that on a chill dawn by the twins, a lion had knelt to a wolf, and the river had turned red with the price of pride. Ka. Soft lantern light wavered along the vaulted roof of the twins' sept, glazing the faces of 8 carved warrior statues in half-shadow. Catelyn Stark knelt before the stranger's figure, the damp of old flagstones seeping through the knees of her gown. She prayed without words, only silence pouring from her heart, like river water through a breach in a levee. Outside those thick walls, the castle breathed a strange hush. Not triumph, not defeat, but the fragile hush that follows a battle only partly finished. The gods themselves seemed to hold their breath lest the stillness shatter. Footsteps padded behind her. Robb's voice, very quiet, slid through the candle-lit gloom. "Mother, the maesters tell me Tywin's fever has broken." She rose. Smoothing skirts she barely felt. Her son looked older in the sept's thin light. Stubble now darkened his jaw, and new lines etched the corners of his mouth, the iron price of command paid in hours instead of years. His gray eyes searched her own for something gentler than counsel, yet counsel was all she had left. "You gave him a healer," she said. "I would have given him ice." Robb's mouth twitched. "Ice was father's sword. Mine is steel that must knit 2 kingdoms, not carve them apart." He offered his arm. They stepped into the night air, where the faint clang of distant repairs echoed off stone. Sentries moved along parapets. New banners, direwolf, trout, seahorse, lily, snapped together in cool wind. The Frey banner now flew beneath them all, a subservient shadow. On the bridge men labored by torchlight to scrape dried blood from stone. It came away in brown scales like shed skin, revealing pale limestone beneath, each patch a reminder that peace was a veneer grown over gore. Catelyn's gaze lingered on a cart trundling toward the east tower, laden with the bodies of men slain at dawn. Lannister and Stark lay side by side, a final mingling that no peace pact could unmarry. "The bodies go north," Robb said. "I would have them buried beneath barrow mounds, with cairns raised to name friend and foe alike. War shames us if we forget the price." Behind them great doors groaned as they swung inward. Lord Walder Frey emerged borne on a padded litter, his thin limbs trembling beneath wolf fur blankets. 2 of his grandsons flanked him, faces drained of color. Walder's mouth pursed like a pickle. "You'll cost me coin with your pious dead fields, boy," he croaked. "Better toss e'en in the river. Feed the fish they will. Plenty of mouths below." Robb inclined his head, ignoring bait. "The living will break bread tomorrow at dawn, Lord Walder. See your kitchens filled." "Bah," Walder spat, but he waved a gnarled hand and muttered to a steward. Catelyn watched the decrepit lord vanish into shadow, then turned to her son. "How many ravens have flown tonight?" "5. 1 for Winterfell, 1 for River Run, 1 to Dragonstone, seeking Lord Stannis' words of truce, 1 south to Old Town, bidding the Hightower stand aside." He hesitated. "And 1 to Sunspear." Prince Doran may remember promises made to my grandfather's blood. Dorne keeps its own counsel, she warned. So do I, Robb said, soft but firm. Far to the east of the twins, Lord Tywin Lannister lay in a chamber that once belonged to Walter's favorite daughter. Sweet lavender had been dabbed across the pillows to mask copper reek. Tywin despised the scent, yet could not lift a hand to banish it. Fever had sapped his famed iron will, leaving limbs leaden and mind adrift in fitful dreams. In one dream he knelt again, each heartbeat a hammer blow, the direwolf's shadow towering, while his own men's eyes stared in disbelief. Betrayal? Humiliation? Fear? All the poisons he had used to cow others, now brewed within his veins like black wine. He woke as Grand Maester Wolkan dabbed his brow with cool cloth. Milk of the poppy, my lord? Water, Tywin rasped. Even speech pained him. On a stool beside the bed, Sir Kevan dozed upright, face slack with exhaustion. Tywin stared at his brother's gray hair, at the pouches beneath his eyes. Loyalty had lines. Letters, Tywin whispered. Kevan stirred. We answered too. Cersei commands us return at once. Joffrey threatens to take the field himself. A scoff scratched Tywin's throat raw to wall. Joffrey, child king on a throne he could barely rule. Right again. Tell Cersei to cage our cub. He will roar when I say. Kevan glanced toward a half-open shutter where dawn's first lavender gleamed. Stark means to parade your promise before the realm, Tywin. We sign at midday. Promises chain men less than gold, Tywin muttered. But chains break. Gold endures. He closed his eyes, plotting even in fever's smother. So the boy wolf thought a bent knee would bind a lion forever. Wolves forgot that winter starves. Dawn rolled up the green fork like pale mist. In the eastern Bailey horns sounded the peace court. Banners of 20 houses gathered. The flayed man of Bolton cracked beside Umber's roaring giant. The trout of Tully swam beneath the merman of Manderley. Even the craven silver bells of House Frey tinkled in the morning breeze, as Walder's brood lined balconies, to witness oaths that would rewrite rivers. Robb Stark wore a plain brigandine dyed winter gray. He stood atop the broad span of the bridge where yesterday's swords had clashed. The stone still bore notches, each a memorial. At his feet lay a low, wide table draped in cloth of pale linen. Inkpots waited, quills trimmed sharp as arrows. Tywin's seat faced Robb's. No throne separated them, only blank parchment. Sir Kevan guided the Lion Lord forth. Tywin moved slowly, yet each step etched defiance. His bandaged arm rested in a sling, though he refused a cane. When he sat, his mail creaked, and one gauntlet tapped the tabletop in a measured cadence, as if keeping time with his pride. Catelyn presented scrolls penned through half the night, articles of peace so fair a maester might weep. They required Lannister withdrawal north of the Tumblestone, the release of Sansa and Arya, a ransom in gold dragons for each northern house burned, the return of every captured Riverlander levyman, and most daring, an admission that Lord Eddard Stark had been executed unlawfully. The last clause Tywin read thrice. Quill poised, he asked, an apology from my grandson. Robb's voice carried clear across the water. Publicly, at Baelor's Sept, before the city. Bold, Tywin murmured. Joffrey is seldom contrite. Then he will learn, Robb said. Tywin dipped the quill. The scratch of ink on parchment sounded like steel drawn. His name unfurled in looping golden script across each sheet. Tywin of House Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock, Shield of Lannisport, Warden of the West. When ink dried, he set quill down and raised frost-pale eyes. Our war sleeps, wolf, but there are other beasts abroad. Greyjoy sails smoke the western sky. Lord Stannis means to ring King's Landing in fire. Bolton whispers in the dark, I wonder, when winter comes, who will guard your flanks? Robb accepted the signed treaty. Winter is coming for all of us, my lord. Some will be eaten, some will endure. Nah. Across the parapet, a ripple of uneasy laughter died swift. Tywin stood. They exchanged shallow bows. respectful enough to deceive uncertain allies, cold enough to promise nothing. Robb turned to the gathered captains. Let it be known, there is peace between lion and wolf. Any man who breaches it answers to me. He handed parchments to maesters to copy thrice in each great library from Old Town to the Eyrie. Ravens fluttered skyward, scrolls bound tight beneath leather straps. One bird, pale as morning frost, winged north by northwest toward Winterfell. Bran Stark dreamed of wolves running under endless night. Wind roared between their fangs as their pack coursed over frozen streams and silver meadows lit by aurora. When he woke, summer lay beside his bed, and the hearth burned low. Maester Luwin, blinking owlishly, entered with a scroll bearing Robb's seal. He read aloud the piece's terms. Bran gripped the coverlet, joy sharp and unexpected. Somewhere deep in his chest he felt Robb's heartbeat like an echo, pack song carried upon blood. Hodor hummed contentment, but Osha, crouched by the hearth, muttered, "Lions don't kneel long." She tossed a log onto embers. When they rise, they bite harder. Luwin eyed her, thoughtful. Perhaps. Yet even a short winter's peace gives folk time to mend roofs, plant garlic, rebuild holdfasts, or to sharpen axes. She said. At River Run, Edmure Tully welcomed his king with a feast in the stone yard beneath flaring braziers. Robb entered astride a grey destrier, flanked by his mother, the Blackfish, Dacy Mormont, and Lord Manderley's towering heir, Wendell, who laughed at every jibe flung his way. Archers upon the walls loosed arrows blazing with pitch, a fiery arch across twilight to honor victory. Inside the great hall, Edmure's cheeks matched his auburn beard as he clasped Robb's arm. "You hold Tywin's signature," he crowed. "River Run will toast your name for 10 generations." Robb smiled, but fatigue clouded the lines around his eyes. "Keep your toast sober, my lord. Greyjoy banners rise in the west. I ride at dawn for Seaguard. Lord Jason Mallister calls for aid." "Then no." Edmure's mirth dimmed. "Seaguard stands for now. But the Krakens burn villages beyond sight of the booming tower. My outriders skirmish daily." Robb sipped watered wine. "If Tywin keeps faith, Lannister spears may aid the west. He bleeds too from Greyjoy raiders, yet I will not stake Winterfell on lion promises." That night, as minstrels sang the Rainwood Bride and braziers glowed hot, Catelyn slipped from the dais to a quiet archway where Brynden the Blackfish leaned, goblet in hand. "You doubt this peace," he said. "I trust my son, not our foe." She replied. Brynden's face, weathered as slate, creased in wry affection. "Then trust his instincts. Robb knows a hunter's game. Wound the boar? Let other predators circle." She shook her head. "Boars turn savage when cornered." Far southeast at King's Landing, bells clanged a frantic symphony as news of Tywin's capitulation swept the city. Small folk gossiped in wine sinks. The king's grandsire had knelt to a boy barely of age. Some laughed, some spat curses, but most felt only fear. War had spared the capital's walls thus far, yet every treaty seemed to carry new armies to their doorstep. Stark wolves, Greyjoy krakens, Baratheon stags aflame. In the Red Keep's council chamber, Queen Cersei hurled a goblet at Sir Osmond Kettleblack, crimson wine spattering frescoes. "My father has lost his wits," she shrieked, eyes brilliant with unshed fury. "He kneels to a pup while Stannis closes the Blackwater? We will be devoured." Tyrion Lannister. Scarred face half lit by candelabra, raised a placating palm. "Peace with the North Freeze gold cloaks for the walls, sweet sister. Better one war than 3. Then shall. Peace." Joffrey shrilled from the throne-like chair Tyrion had grudgingly allowed him. "I will give the wolf boy peace when his head adorns a spike. He dares demand my apology." Tyrion sipped wine with deliberate calm. "A prudent king eats humble pie when the kitchen is full of knives. You will bow at the sept, offer sweet contrition, then lock the baker in the black cells once the feast is done." Cersei glared. "You counsel deceit. I counsel survival." Tyrion's mismatched eyes flicked toward Varys, who merely smiled. "And let us not forget, Our father's pen stroke spared the rock from Greyjoy raids. Casterly fleets may join ours now without civil blood between. Joffrey kicked at a table leg petulantly. I will not grovel. You will, Tyrion said softly. Or the High Septon may discover certain of your bedroom amusements. Even a throne of swords cannot shield you from the faith. That silenced the boy for a heartbeat. Cersei seized the pause. Very well, she said through gritted teeth. We kneel, we sign, then we bide our time. Tyrion bowed. As lions do. Across churning storm seas, Balon Greyjoy strode battlements of pike, salt spray crusting the black fur of his mantle. His red-rimmed eyes fixed upon crimson skies. A sailor's warning. Ravens had come. Lannister and Stark forged peace. Good. Let the green lands think their wars ended. Balon's krakens would spread like shadow from seaward gloom, devouring weakened coasts. The fleet gathers at Harlaw, Victarion reported, voice booming above surf. 70 longships burn pitch by midnight, ready to strike. Balon's dry tongue flicked across salt-cracked lips. Our hour. The wolf turns south. The lion licks wounds. We strike Moat Cailin, choke the neck, bleed the north white till they crawl to us. Then this hour. Victarion nodded, iron half-helm glinting. Yet beneath that iron the crow's eye Euron watched with lazy amusement, fingering a patch of black leather that covered one iris. He smiled a shark smile. Careful, brother. Wolves bite, lions claw. But krakens drown slow. Best if none know which tentacle chokes them first. While fleets readied war, Robb Stark rode west under banners, snapping with damp wind. Seaguard's tall tower loomed gray on the horizon, and smoke beyond revealed villages still smoldering. Lord Jason Mallister greeted the king with a soldier's haste, recounting how ironborn reavers struck by night, then melted into sea fog, carrying captives chained like game birds. His voice trembled not with fear but furious impotence. Robb listened as they stalked charred ruins of a thatched hamlet, charflock feathers strewn across ash. Children's toys smoldered among broken beams. I will not see my father's bannermen burned in their beds, he vowed. Greyjoy pays blood for every widow here. Scout spoke of a great black sail longship called Silence prowling the coast, its captain clad in patchwork leathers and an eye like blue ice. Rumor named him Euron Crow's Eye, Balon's exiled brother, feared even by Ironborn. His raiders struck faster than ravens flew. At council that night, Galbart Glover suggested marching along the coast, rooting out landing parties. Roose Bolton proposed a different path. Swift strike at the neck, trapping Greyjoy in worthless swamps while Northmen harried their rear. Split our army. Greyjohn growled. Fools shuffle. We crush krakens where they crawl. Bolton's eyes gleamed. Or let krakens think us distracted. A feint along coast while a second host slips through their home waters by captured longship, lands on Pike itself, ends Balon in his hall. Silence settled. Such daring bordered madness. Yet Catelyn, seated in a high-backed chair, saw a prospect. She recalled Theon Greyjoy, once her son's ward, now enemy. If Balon fell, would Theon trade his father's shadow for Robb's renewed trust? Theon still roamed with Robb's outriders, guiding them through marsh and fen, his loyalty a thread frayed but unbroken. She voiced none of these thoughts. Politics of blood and adoption were nests of vipers. Robb weighed each plan, calling for maps. He studied currents, tides, the choke point where the booming tower could fire upon raider sails. Hours later, torches guttered low when he at last spoke. We do both. Great John's spears drive Greyjoy from the coast. At nightfall, Roose leads a picked force south by captured ship. When Balon looks outward, he finds wolves at his door. Even as he spoke, Roose's face remained unreadable. But in his pale gaze, Catelyn saw a glint that made her shiver. Ambition stirred where loyalty should rest. Weeks turned beneath harvest moons. Peace treaties spread across the realm like thin ice over a deep pond. At Baelor's Sept, the High Septon anointed King Joffrey with 7 oils, bidding humility. Before a crowd 10,000 strong, Joffrey Baratheon bent one knee and recited lines prepared by Tywin's own hand. I lament the wrongful execution of Lord Eddard Stark, and give pardon to his daughters, Sansa and Arya." The crowd buzzed like disturbed bees. Some spat, others cheered, none believed contrition true. But oaths spoken before gods echo louder than truth in the hearts of men. In Ser Dontos' company, Sansa listened from behind a pillar, tears standing bright in her eyes, tears of brittle hope and fear. She had begged for her sister's life, yet even she did not know Arya's fate. Whispers claimed the younger wolf girl vanished into flea bottoms, warrens months before. Now the Queen's court promised safe conduct north. Sansa's breath caught when the herald called her forth. She stepped into sunlight streaming through stained glass, wearing a plain dusky rose gown. She knelt. Joffrey's lips curved in cruel memory, but he tilted her chin with two gloved fingers and spoke loud enough for all. "Rise, Lady Stark, and take this token of my repentance." He placed a thin circlet of gold on her brow, too tight, but she dared not flinch. In the throng, Tyrion met her eyes for an instant, pity mixed with caution. His small nod said, "Play the game a little longer. Freedom is near." At Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon read Tywin's surrender with stone-smile satisfaction. "The realm fractures," he told Sir Davos Seaworth beside the painted table. "Lion bows to wolf, stag will break them both, rule justly. On the Blackwater we finish this." Davos frowned. "If they join against you." "They will not," Stannis said. "Wolf hates lion more than dragon hates fire. And lion's pride seethes even in chains." He placed a wooden wolf piece on the map, beside a red-painted lion. His mailed fist crushed them together. Behind him, Red Priestess Melisandre laid slender fingers across glowing coals. "I see other beasts still. A kraken coils around a pale sword, and a flayed man smiles in dusk. Shadows fight, your grace." Her ruby glimmered like living ember. "Azor Ahai must stand amid ashes when dawn comes." Stannis ignored half her riddles yet believed all that suited him. He pointed to the mouth of the Blackwater. 50,000 strong. Soon, fire ships chain across the river. We burn the capital clean. Then, time marched. Snowflakes kissed the neck early that year, harbingers of the season's teeth gnawing at high passes. Northern outriders clad in furs traded for salted fish at the Sisterton markets, telling tales of wolves who forced lions to crawl and krakens to bleed. Songs of Robb, the unbroken, drifted south to taverns where sellswords weighed loyalty. Yet at dusk, one bitter night, a raven beat ragged wings to Harrenhal. The message within bore Bolton's sigil, Roos's seal pressed into dark wax shaped like human skin. He wrote of victory upon Pike's treacherous rocks. Balon Greyjoy dead, his crown dashed on wet stone. Euron slain by mysterious fire. Theon surrendered. Pike burned, he said, offering ashes as gift. He asked only one boon. "Grant me the Dreadfort's ancient right to rule the north in your stead while you press the southern lines." Maester Vyman read the letter aloud. Robb sat unmoved by fire's glow, but anger coiled behind his ribs. He trusted Roose with blades, not with thrones. Yet, the Dreadfort's strength guarded the north's winter roads. Refusal might birth new rebellion. Catelyn counseled caution. Accept his stewardship, keep him close. Greatjon disagreed. Skinner's son hides snakes neath his cloak. Flay him before he flays us. That night, Robb walked alone along Seaguard's ramparts, wind off the sunset sea clawing hair from his eyes. Grey wind padded near, head low. Robb spoke softly to the wolf as if to a brother. "The realm no longer bleeds from one wound, but many. Tywin's pen mends one. Greyjoy's steel cuts another. Bolton's ambition splits the rest." Grey wind growled low, and Robb stroked ears that twitched at scents beyond human ken. "A king must hunt many beasts at once," he whispered. "But even a hunter tires." South of the Trident, Tywin recovered strength like a coiled spring. He left the twins under escort, headed for the tumbling hills of the Westerlands. Along the way he met villages ravaged by Greyjoy salt suns, their smoking thatch burned under lion banners, Lannister pride suffocated beneath ashes of his own folk. At Ashmark he convened his captains behind locked gates. "The Kraken bleeds, thanks to Stark," Tywin told them. "We cut off its head quickly, claim credit." He unveiled new gold, minted at Casterly Rock, bearing the lion's head on one side and a wolf bent beneath a crown on the other. "In every market we spend these liberally. Let the realm see Stark's collar on Robb's neck." Sir Kevan raised a brow. "Hell rage at this insult." "Good," Tywin said. Anger clouds judgment. The north spreads itself, thin chasing Krakens, Stannis, and Boltons. One swift stroke on fertile ground, Lady Went's lands perhaps, and the wolf's pack scatters. Word spread quietly. Tywin amassed new allies. House Hightower promised ships. The Reach's lesser lords offered grain. Duskendale's Darklands pledged secret harbor. A silent war of ledgers began long before iron rang on helms again. Near Moat Cailin, Theon Greyjoy, wrists bound, knelt before Robb's litter at a damp ford choked with reeds. He looked thinner, cheeks hollow, but eyes still flashed sea salt pride. "I yield," he said, voice thick with shame. "Balon is dead by Bolton treachery, yet I make no excuses. I stand for judgment." Catelyn watched Robb's face harden. They had loved Theon like a brother once, until the Kraken's horns twisted his heart. She feared what her son might decree. Around them Northmen murmured, some spitting sidelong at the prisoner. Robb drew his sword but placed tip downward into muck. "Your crimes drown rivers deep, but winter is here and wolves need every blade. Swear to me by salt and snow and steel, and your life is mine to use or take." Theon swallowed. "I swear." Bolton's emissary standing behind hissed displeasure. Yet Theon's oath bound him. Robb cut the cords. Theon staggered up, rubbing bruised wrists. Eyes shone suspiciously wet under gray sky. That night by campfire Theon whispered to Catelyn, "He spared me. Bide your words, my lady. Roose hunts more than Krakens." Catelyn studied him long, wondering if redemption could bloom on ground sown with treachery. The flames danced, casting direwolf-shaped shadows across his worn face. As chill months sharpened, snows deepened north of the neck. Robb's host, though victorious, numbered half what it once did. Attrition from skirmishes, disease from cold marches, and garrisons spread thin across captured keeps gnawed his strength. He called another council at Seaguard to weigh next steps. Edmure joined by riverboat, cheeks raw from wind. From Winterfell Hodor bore a letter sealed by Bran's shaky hand, asking when his brother would return. Roose Bolton arrived last, cloaked in heavy furs, his bastard son, Ramsay Snow, at his side. Ramsay's pale eyes flickered like a fox, lips constantly stretched in near smile. The sight set the hall on edge. Robb greeted the Dreadfort lord courteously. Bolton bowed, presenting a sack of blackened crowns hammered from ironborn helms. "Pike burns," he said. "Victory for the North." But his bastard smirk told another story. At council, Robb unveiled a daring plan. March east to River Run. Gather river lords, beat Stannis and Joffrey, both by forging a true alliance with the Vale. "Lysa Arryn knows my mother blood and faith," he argued. "If the Ares Knights fly, we might break Stannis at the Blackwater. Shield Kings landing from fire, and earn the realm's love." Great John roared approval. Edmure nodded, though anxious eyes flicked to Bolton. Roose only folded gloved hands. "Divide our forces again? The Kraken may still thrash. And Tywin is not idle. My scouts speak of new forges blazing at Casterly Rock." Robb replied, "Our peace holds only if we keep Tywin penned. Half measures lose battles before swords cross. We strike hearts, not flanks." Roose bowed. "As you command, your grace." Yet Catelyn saw malice lurking like frost beneath new snow. Beyond the neck, the first true blizzards descended. Bran watched from a tower window as white storms devoured forest lines. Ravens found it harder to fly, messages slowed. Among them came whispers that wildlings gathered in the far north, bound by a horn of legend, moving as one. Old Nan's tales spoke through cracked lips of giants stirring dead walks. Bran felt ghost voices on the wind, terrible, cold, ancient. One night he dreamt of Robb at a crossroads, wolves at his side, crows overhead. A flayed man stood behind him holding a red smiley mask, eyes black pits. Bran tried to cry a warning but snow clogged his throat. He woke screaming Summer's name. Maester Luwin dabbed his brow and murmured of fevers, but Bran sensed prophecy. He summoned ravens at dawn, clawed fingers shaking as he penned a child's hand across parchment. Beware the flayed smiles. The heart tree sees them behind you. He sealed it with dark wax and bid it flown to Seaguard. Whether storms would spare the tiny wings, he did not know. On the sunset sea, galleys bearing the sunburst of House Hightower met Lannister squadrons trimmed in crimson sails. Together they blockaded the Shield Islands, choking trade from Old Town to Gulltown. Lannister gold flowed like mead at a wedding. Merchants sang lion praise, while common folk cursed new tariffs. Yet Tywin fed coin into every hand, money to sour the taste of Northmen's victory. Across the plains of the Reach, Ser Mace Tyrell fretted as fields lay fallow under early frost. He had not chosen sides since Renly's death, yet coveted a seat close to Winter's. Littlefinger whispered deals, offering marriage bonds. Margaery Tyrell for King Joffrey, sealing reach and crown. Cersei snarled but could not ignore the levies the Tyrells could march. Games within games unfolded, each piece nudging Robb's treaty toward fracture. At Seaguard, Robb answered letters through half the night. His fingers stiffened from chill, yet he pushed on. Bran's raven had not arrived. Storms held flight. He dispatched outriders to gauge Tywin's new musters, scouts to the mountains of the moon seeking Lysa's reply. In quiet moments he thought of Jean Westerling, Lady of Crag, who had nursed his wound after Oxcross in another timeline that now never was. In this path, his honor remained wed to treaty vows, fray alliances not yet broken by desire. Yet loneliness could tempt even kings, and he felt its claws on cold nights. Duty weighed heavier than any blade. Gray Wind, sensing his mood, laid great head upon Robb's knee when candles guttered. Robb scratched behind an ear. "You smell war," he whispered, "even in peace." The wolf's answering growl vibrated like thunder. In the bowls of Harrenhal's melted towers, Qyburn, once a maester, now something other, attended Sir Gregor Clegane's fever. The mountain had taken a crossbow bolt, soaked in manticore venom days before during a skirmish against Mallister outriders. Tywin commanded Qyburn to save his beast. Qyburn sought darker arts. He bled leeches filled with basilisk bile, stitched pale wolf hide to wounds, muttered Valyrian hexes. Nights echoed with screams human no longer. Rumors fled on crow wings. The mountain died but rose again, changed. Tywin permitted whispers. Fear served better than swords at times. If he must break treaty, weapons of dread would lead his vanguard. When spring's first hint stirred beneath snows, Stannis Baratheon lit the beaches beneath Dragonstone with pyres of driftwood gods, their bleeding sap crackling. He sailed at last, black sails trimmed red. His fleet slid across storm-quiet seas toward the mouth of Blackwater Bay. On cliffs above, centuries of kings landing, marked lights bobbing like dying stars. Tyrion Lannister stood upon the battlements counting sails. "Too many," he muttered. Bronn spat over the edge. "I like odds small. Tell the alchemists double their shifts." Tyrion tapped parchment bearing numbers for wildfire casks. "Stark peace freed no soldiers for our walls. If Stannis breaks us, the wolf's necktie about Tywin's pride matters not." Bronn smirked. "Always a bigger beast in the woods, eh?" Robb convened last council at Seaguard before March East. Bolton arrived late, cloak sodden with sleet. Bastard son absent. "Storms delay our coast patrols," he said. "We must garrison here through winter, lest krakens rise anew." Robb studied him. "Your bastard's fleet moors at Pike. Let him guard coasts." Bolton's eyelid twitched. Robb pressed. "You ride with me." Bolton inclined head slowly. "Of course, your grace." Catelyn noticed the tightness of Rooz's smile. As men dispersed, she touched Robb's arm. Bolton's loyalty is thin ice. Keep umbers near. He nodded, though worry lined his brow. A raven had just come from River Run. Hoster Tully took turn for worse. Edmure begged Robb hurry. Another message, unsigned, bore only 2 words cut into parchment with crude blade. Kingslayer escapes. Dornish perhaps, or Bravo Sellsword hand. If Jaime ranged free, Tywin's knees might straighten sooner than parchments predicted. 3 nights later, Robb's column wound east along River Road. Dawn paled the horizon. Columns of breath rose from horses in pale ghost vapor. At a narrow dell thick with frost-killed grass, their vanguard found bodies. 10 stark outriders flayed of skin, Bolton lances broken among them. On each corpse, a sigil carved deep. A naked man upside down. A message written in blood across a shield read, "The North remembers who bleeds it." Greatjon cursed skyward. Robb dismounted, face white as snow. Catelyn's heart hammered. Roose Bolton knelt by one corpse, expressionless. He murmured, "To frame me, perhaps, foreign hands." Robb turned burning eyes on him. Or loyal to dread. He ordered the bodies burned and banners lowered in mourning. That night, Bran's raven finally arrived. Catelyn read it by firelight. "Beware the flayed smiles. The heart tree sees them behind you." She clenched fist around the fragile parchment until it crushed. The message came too late. Smiles already showed their teeth. Smoke from the pyre drifted into pale stars. Robb watched embers swirl up and vanish. Gray wind prowled restlessly, hackles high. Catelyn approached, warmth of flame reflecting in tear-wet eyes. "We ride into maw of wolves dressed as men," she whispered. Robb answered, voice husk like dying coals. "Not men. Monsters we made when we let fear rule." He looked toward the dark ridge where Bolton's tents shadowed. "If Roose betrays, we break him fast." "That may break the North," she said. "We mend it," he replied, though conviction cracked. He reached, took her hand. "I'm his father," he confessed quietly. She squeezed back. "So do I." At dawn, horns woke camp. Shrill alarms. Bolton's ranks gone. Tents empty, save for banner poles snapped and thrust into frozen ground. On each pole, a flayed human face fluttered crimson, frozen stiff. Tracks led south toward Stonehenge, where Tywin's gold wagons traveled. Greatjon's furious howls shook morning fog. Edmure clutched hair in both hands. Robb barked orders, sending half his host racing in pursuit, half to secure Seaguard. Yet even as riders mounted, fresh scouts galloped in. Tywin marched north with 30,000, sundering his treaty. Hightower ships blockaded White Harbor. Stannis besieged King's Landing. The realm once more bled from every wound at once. Robb's jaw clenched. He donned helm painted white with dire wolf. To his captains he said, "Tywin thinks the North staggers. We show him a pack's fury." Banners rose, drums thundered. Yet within him, a seed of dread sprouted. Winter's long night loomed, and betrayal cut deeper than any lion's claw. In the Blackwater dawn, wildfire bloomed like green suns, lighting horrors upon dark waves. Screams carried to Red Keep walls. Tyrion swung a bloody axe, rallying gold cloaks at the mud gate. Above, Joffrey watched half an hour, then fled inside. Mothers clutched children. Sailors burned alive. South of the city, Renly's ghost marched. In truth, Margaery's brother Loras, leading Tyrell Rose banners. 5 and 10,000 fresh knights descending on Stannis' rear. Steel crashed. Justice blurred. Victory perched on a dagger's edge. In that chaos, a single raven swooped to the High Septon's chamber, bearing parchment stolen from Tywin's secret trove. It revealed Bolton's pact. Gold. Titles. Lordship of the North for treachery. The Septon, gasping at lines of sin, rushed to court but found doors barred by Cersei's guards. The realm teetered. Truth clawed at locks. North of Flea Bottom, Arya Stark slipped through alleys dressed as an urchin boy. She'd survived by shadow, blade, and 3 names whispered to Jaqen H'ghar. Now tales of her brother's triumph reached her ears. She meant to flee the city, reach Harroway's town where riverboats might carry her home. Yet wildfire's glow bathed the city like hellfire. Guards swarmed gatehouses. She ducked into a butcher's yard, thoughts tumbling. If Stannis won, gates might open. If Joffrey held, her path shrank. Either way she was stark, blood burned bright. In her pocket, the stolen coin of Bravos warmed her palm. "Jaqen's last gift," he said. She repeated the words he taught, though Valyrian tasted like coal dust. Valar Morghulis. At River Run, Hoster Tully breathed his last. Edmure, captured in war's snare, knelt by deathbed, yet felt walls tremble with distant hooves. Lannister outriders approached from the west, Bolton from north. Riverlands became crossroads of ambition. Blackfish Brynden rallied veterans to hold stone for as long as walls held breath. "We fought this war once," he barked, "and we'll fight until fish swim the ramparts." Ravens soared seeking Robb, but storms swallowed them again. Beneath weirwood boughs in a forgotten godswood near Seaguard, Catelyn Stark knelt once more. Blood dripped from her bitten lip onto moss. Tears followed. She prayed not for victory, nor peace, but for the strength to shepherd her children through darkness creeping. Leaves whispered secrets in wind. She rose, eyes flint. "A mother's love is sharper than Bolton's knives." She told the heart tree. Then she marched to command tents, and took quill to parchment. "To Lady Lysa Arryn, sister of my blood, last child of River Run. Fly, for winter claws us both." Night cloaked Tywin's advance across Tumblestone Flats. Fire-speckled fields behind him, Bolton's banners now among his own. Sir Kevan rode beside, uneasy. Lannister outriders returned with word. Stark's host split, chasing phantom traitor. Tywin allowed a smile like frost. "Tomorrow at dawn we ride hard, break them before they coil." Yet scouts returned near midnight, breathless. "Riders in rear, my lord, Giant of Umber leads them. 3,000 heavy horse." Tywin frowned. Ghosts. Stark's host divided, yet still hunts. Have Captain Amory wheel reserve. Reserve turned, but ambush exploded from riverbank reeds. Manderly spearmen surged screaming. North. Gray wind leaped from shadows, fangs ripping hamstrings. Lions roared, horses shrieked. Tywin drew sword, helm buckled on. Blade met axe. Greyjohn towered, laughter booming. "Bend again, old lion," he bellowed, hewing at Tywin's guard. Tywin parried, gold sword ringing. Disorder rippled lines, yet he steeled discipline. At shouted command, crossbowmen loosed. Greyjohn reeled as bolt pierced pauldron. He retreated laughing still. Tywin held field, but lost ground. Dawn found camp smoldering. He counted cost, jaw set. Stark still bit. Yet even as wolves harried lions, Roose Bolton pivoted, steering fresh levies toward Winterfell. Word reached Bran late. Garrison small, Maester Luwin perplexed. Bastard Ramsay marched behind, flaying banners flying. Theon Greyjoy, guarding Moat Cailin with penance, saw smoke on northern horizon. His choice stood stark. Flee to sea or ride to Winterfell's aid. He chose saddle, heart thrumming. Redemption demanded blood. Robb, hearing of Bolton treachery, halted pursuit of Tywin near Stone Hedge, turned north with half his host in forced march. Catelyn rode beside, though exhaustion weighed. Rain turned roads to sludge. Hobbling horse after horse, they pressed on. Each mile seemed doom's drumbeat. Snow began to fall. Fat wet flakes melting on mail. Winter's edge. By shivering wood, a raven found them. Bran missing, Winterfell ablaze. Bolton men set torches, demanding surrender. The garrison held the great hall. Fighting raged courtyard to Godswood. Greyjoy's small force joined, turning tide briefly. But Ramsay's tricks split defenders. Robb's cry cracked air. Raw anguish and rage fused. He spurred horse, wolves howled. The host thundered north, hearts aflame. At Shivering Seas cliffs a lone watchtower witnessed gray dawn. Its maester, a timid boy not yet sworn, saw flames on horizon, and wondered if the world itself burned. Far south wildfires still flickered. Far west krakens churned. Far east dragons stirred in shadow waiting. All across the realm pieces thin ice fractured and groaned. Beneath its cracking deep waters churned the beating hearts of kings, lords, mothers, bastards, children. Winter's wind carried scent of snow and steel. And in distant cold forests beyond the wall, blue eyes opened, ancient and pitiless, listening to the howl of wolves and the roar of lions, knowing their feuds meant little when the long night comes. But for the moment, mortal songs still echoed, of a young wolf who forced a lion to kneel, of a lion sharpening claws anew, of krakens bleeding, of fires that burn green, and of betrayal's flayed smile painted crimson on white snow. The song was unfinished, notes still hanging taut on winter's breath, waiting for the next hand to pluck its strings and decide whether the realm would break apart beneath the strain, or be forged, like steel, in the furnace of unrelenting war. Okay. Ash-gray dawn smothered the river road under a low lid of cloud, pressing icy drizzle into every gap in mail and every tear in wool. A bitter wind swept ragged banners forward as Robb Stark drove his host north. The ground a quagmire churned by iron-shod hooves and stumbling men. In the muffled gloom every sound carried as though the world itself were hollow. The clack of wagon wheels, the muted jangle of harness, the coughs of sleep-starved soldiers. Among them, Grey Wind loped, restless, ghosting through the ranks with ears flat and eyes sharp as chipped quartz. The direwolf scented smoke hours before human noses did, and his low growl rippled like drums through the column. By mid-morning flakes of wet snow began to drift, fat and sodden, melting into the earth and turning ruts to sludge. Scouts cantered back with word of torched farmsteads only a day's hard ride ahead. The king called a halt in a clearing rimmed by leaf-bare oaks, a hasty council beneath sagging canvas strung between spear shafts. Steam rose from men's shoulders and from the fresh-killed hind quarter roasting for the captain's meager meal. Robb stood bareheaded, raindrops threading his brown hair into dark ropes. His eyes were rimmed red, a sleepless, hunted look. "They'll not sack Winterfell and vanish," Galbart Glover said, tracing a line across a damp map with his gauntleted finger. "Bolton means to sit the castle and bleed us on the march. Or burn it root and branch," Great John Umber rumbled, voice like distant thunder. Skinners whelped delights in ashes. Caitlin wrapped her cloak tighter, feeling the winter in her bones. "Bran and Rickon." Maester Lewin said the boys vanished into the crypts before the gates fell. "The crypts may yet hide them." "Crypts won't stop Ramsay once he takes the keys," Daisy Mormont said, jaw clenched. "We must reach the walls before he pries open their stone lids." Robb stared at the snow-flecked parchment, then at the men around him. "We ride light," he decided. "Every man with a fresh horse, every third archer. The rest march after with supply. If we can break the siege in 2 days, the grain wagons won't matter anyway." It was madness in the eyes of some, abandoning half their strength to the mire. But none argued. They all heard Grey Wind's growl and smelled the distant smoke. Orders snapped. Drums thudded. Armor buckled, girths tightened. The column split like a river around stone. Robb swung into his saddle and raised sword to the iron sky. The men cheered a horse-hungry cry, more defiant than joyous, and thundered north. The fast host moved like a spear thrust. 4,000 horse and 1,000 picked foot scrambling in their wake. They slept in the saddle, nibbled hardtack as they rode, watered mounts in half-frozen brooks without dismounting. A stag of pale moonlight guided them that first night. The aurora kindled briefly on the northern rim, green and purple curtains rippling across black velvet. Some took it for an omen. Caitlin prayed it was one of hope. Roads grew worse. Snow crusted the ruts, hiding stones that lamed beasts. Men slid from saddles to lead mounts across flooded culverts. Once, in the hush before dawn, they overtook a band of small folk fleeing south. Haggard, frost-bitten women dragging children on makeshift sleds. Their tale chilled the marrow. Bolton's bastard had flayed Sir Roderick Castle upon Winterfell's ramparts, skin nailed to a spear. When Catelyn heard, she pressed a hand to her mouth, eyes filling. Roderick had taught Rickon to ride a carousel pony. He had braided the girl's hair when Septa Mordane fell ill. Robb's knuckles whitened around his reins, and the host quickened pace until horses frothed. 2 riders found them the next afternoon. Mira and Jojen Reed, swathed in speckled cloaks of moss and cattail fibers. They appeared ghost-like beside a beaver dam ford, greening the gray monotony. Mira's spear butt struck mud before Robb's charger. Jojen raised a tiny pale hand. "The young wolf chases his shadow too close," he said, eyes ancient in a boy's skull. "One step further, and the mire will swallow legs and hearts both." Robb reined in, breath steaming. "Where are my brothers?" Jojen glanced toward snow-smothered trees. "Beneath the world, safe for a breath. Bolton hunts with dogs that run on 2 legs. We can guide you by tracks only frogs see." Robb studied them a heartbeat, then gave terse nod. Grey Wind padded forward, sniffing the Crannogman boy, then chuffed as if accepting a packmate. That night, the Reeds led the host off the King's Road, onto deer trails winding through frost-crusted heather fields. They skirted villages where Bolton outriders quartered and stole across iced ponds that would have broken under armored ranks, but held the frog spears and their light-footed charges. At sunset the second day, the wind shifted. Ash stung nostrils. Smoke smeared the horizon behind bare poplar silhouettes. They climbed a low ridge crowned by a circle of weather-worn stones older than Winterfell itself. From there Robb saw his home, Winterfell's towers jutting black against orange glow, outer walls charred in places where fires still gnawed. Ziga tents speckled the snowy fields, neat rows of pale canvas and flayed man banners crimson under dying light. Horns brayed, spearmen drilling within the ring of torches. Robb's breath hissed. Beside him Greatjon growled something savage. "No banners," Robb said. "No horn. We ride straight through them at moonrise. Archers loose fire from the west, horse strike the east, foot breach the hunter's gate." Catelyn touched his arm. "Find Bran first. Make sure the boys live." "Ramsay dies first," Robb answered, voice flat. She looked deep into his eyes and saw a mercy burned away. Night fell hard. The moon rode behind shreds of cloud, half lit like a butchered coin. The attack began as a whisper. 36 black-fletched shafts drifting onto guard towers, each arrow bearing wax-soaked cloth that burst into bright blue flame. The wildfire winter peasants stored from peat resin secreted by reed folk. Towers erupted in blue tongues, lighting the night like dawn. Confusion rippled through Bolton's camp as horns belatedly sounded. Then Grey Wind howled. Cavalry exploded from shadow, a crashing avalanche of steel. The first ring of tents folded under hooves. Sleeping men never rose. A drummer tried to beat cadence, found Greatjon's axe shearing him in half. Daisy Mormont led her spears straight for the banner pole, where the flayed man drooped. She ripped it down, trampled it beneath iron-shod boots. Ramsay Snow mounted his black courser in the glow of burning pitch cauldrons. His pale eyes danced with glee even as chaos swirled. "Loose the kennels," he shouted. Men ran to iron-bound cages, flinging open gates. Out poured hounds lean as famine, muzzles spiked, trained to rip hamstrings. They streaked through firelit dark, but Mira Reed's net traps lay hidden in long grass. One by one the dogs tumbled, snarling, ensnared, and Crannogman leapt ghost-quiet to slit throats. Robb's warhorse crashed through a makeshift barricade of storm-felled logs. Ramsay wheeled to meet him, bastard sword raised high with careless flourish. "Pup," he called over din. "Come taste the kennel-master's whip." Robb answered with steel. They circled amid shrieking horses, sparks flying. Ramsay slashed quick, nearly playful. Robb parried, riposted, pressed. Grey Wind materialized from smoke. Ramsay's horse reared in terror. The bastard dropped and rolled, slashing at the wolf. Steel met fur. Blood sprayed. Grey Wind yelped but lunged again, jaws closing on Ramsay's sword arm. Robb spurred forward, blade plunging. Ramsay twisted, the point carving only pauldron. He hurled a dagger, punching through Robb's leather vambrace, grazing flesh. They broke apart as northern spears swarmed. Ramsay disappeared among shadows toward the hunter's gate. Meanwhile, the footmen, led by Glover, battered at that same gate with a ram of pine bound in iron. Fire arrows arced overhead, some falling among their own ranks, but the ram thundered dully until rusted hinges shrieked and splintered. The gate burst open. Inside, corridors of half-ruined stone echoed with shouts. Manderley crossbowmen advanced in disciplined files, bolts thunking dotted white. Servants screamed, fled cellar doors. In the south tower yard, a ring of Bolton pikemen tried to form shield wall, but were broken by the charge of Dacey's she-bears bellowing their war chant. Catelyn slipped among the wounded and dying like a wraith, searching faces for her sons. In the Godswood the heart tree still stood, bark scorched on one flank, leaves shed and buried in snow. She knelt in ashes, whispering Ned's name, begging the old gods to spare their children one more time. Snow hissed on red sap weeping down the trunk. Below, deep within crypt passages, Bran Stark clutched Rickon's small hand. Shagga, son of Dolf, crouched ahead with stone axe, and Hodor loomed behind. They felt more than heard the shock of battle above. Dust trickled from ceiling, torches guttered. "Wolves," Rickon muttered, rocking. "I hear wolves." Summer pressed against Bran's leg, low growl thrumming. "They're ours," Bran whispered, though he was not sure. Each rumble of stone felt larger, as if giants fought in Hall of Kings. Sudden quiet fell. Footsteps echoed, a limping pattern, soft but wrong. Bran's skin prickled. Summer snarled, hackles rising. Shagga lifted axe. Into torchlight stepped Ramsay Snow, face drenched in mud and blood. One sleeve torn, eyes shining madness. "Little lords," he sang, voice sweet as rot. "Game o' faces, eh? I've one for each of you." "Nan." Shagga charged, but Ramsay flung a hand, scattering fine powder. The hill tribesman wheezed, staggered blind. Ramsay darted sideways, slashing thigh. Shagga toppled. Summer lunged. Ramsay parried with wolf-tooth dirk, slitting ear. The dire wolf cried, yet clamped bastard's wrist. Ramsay shrieked, stabbed, missed. Bran felt the wolf's pain as his own. Vision wavered red. He shouted wordless fury and, without thought, slipped into Summer, the weir connection snapping tight like bowstring. Through golden wolf eyes he saw Ramsay's terrified face inches away. He tasted salt metal blood, smelled bastard's fear. He bit deeper, bone crunching, then released to snap at throat. Ramsay reeled, stumbling over Shagga's fallen form, and Summer threw his weight, bowling man and torch together. Flame lick spilled powder. A gout of fire roared. Ramsay's scream echoed off tomb walls as burning pitch coated him. He staggered ablaze into darkness, flailing, then fell silent in a puddle where his own fat sputtered. When Bran slipped back into himself, he collapsed, gasping. Rickon sobbed. Hodor moaned. Hodor over and over, rocking. Smoke thickened. Shagga pressed rag to gash, cursing in guttural tongue. Bran rallied, calling Summer, limping but alive. To heal. They must flee before flame turned crypt into grave. Above ground snow fell heavier, smothering fires. The battle was ending. Bolton men broke, cut down or throwing down arms. Grey Wind dragged a corpse, the kennel master, away from gate. Robb limped into the yard, cloak sliced to ribbons, arm bandaged. His knights ringed the well where prisoners knelt. Catelyn emerged from smoke as Bran, Rickon, Hodor, and Shagga crawled from a hidden rusted grate beyond the broken stables. She ran, skirts flapping, fell to knees around them, sobbing thanks. Bran clung to her, shaking. "Father heard. He saved us." She stroked hair, whispering love. Robb reached them, dropping sword, hugging his brothers tight. Tears carved tracks through soot on his cheeks. Grey wind nuzzled summer, both wounded but wagging. Joy quickened hearts, but the yard reeked of charred flesh, and the cries of dying still drifted from towers. War had spared fragments, not lives entire. They found Maester Lewin bleeding in the broken sept, a spear through his side. He smiled weakly as Robb knelt. "Winterfell still stands," he whispered. Robb pressed cloth to wound. Lewin's hand clasped his wrist. "Defend these walls, your grace." Stone remembers. Through the long night, healers toiled. By dawn, snow lay pure and white atop blackened beams, covering horrors like a shroud. Robb held court in the great hall, smashed doors propped with timbers. Prisoners were dragged before him. Ironborn survivors, Bolton turncloaks, sellswords. Ramsay's corpse, burned beyond face, was flung at his feet. Most men looked away. Robb stared until stench made eyes water. At length he spoke. "Thus ends betrayal." He ordered the body stuffed in a cage and hung above the hunter's hut for crows. Some urged flaying of prisoners in vengeance. Robb refused. "We will not wear the bastard's skin," he said. Instead he sent most to labor rebuilding walls. A handful of captains he hanged at dawn. Justice, not terror. 3 nights after retaking Winterfell, a council gathered in the Solar. Bran, pale but alert, told of visions. Saw Tywin's host regroup near Ashmark. Stannis beaten on Blackwater by green fire and rose banners. Sansa journeyed north under Kingsguard escort. Word said the king had kept his pledge. But other tidings darkened the room. Wildlings massing at the wall, dead things stirring. The realm was splintering while snows deepened. Robb fingered Wolfhead pommel. Tywin moves again. Bolton's treachery gift him cause. Yet we cannot leave the north defenseless. I must divide the pack once more. "No," Catelyn said, voice soft but unyielding. "The realm may freeze or burn, but your first duty is here." "My duty is to every man who died at Whispering Wood, at the twins on this yard," Robb replied. "Their sons will starve if gold lions march unchecked." Greyjohn slammed fist. "I ride south, your grace. Let lions feel giants roar." Many offered likewise. But Robb shook head. "We need grain smiths, safe roads. We hold here through winter. Then, when rivers thaw, we ride again." Some grumbled yet obeyed. Plans formed. Garrison Strong points at Moat Cailin. Rebuild Deepwood Motte. Send envoys to White Harbor for ships. Catelyn proposed alliance with the Tyrells, who had saved King's Landing but might weary of lions. She would ride to Highgarden with small retinue. Their seeds grew even in snow. Bran from Carved Share added quietly, "There are more enemies than men. The wall sends no ravens, and the night is long." His voice carried weight beyond youth. Robb met his gaze, and for the first time the king's face showed fear, not for thrones, but for dawnless skies. Work began at once. Rotted gates replaced, the burned library roof covered against snow, granaries inventoried. Theon Greyjoy, splinted arm-bound, supervised teams clearing rubble, earning wary nods but little trust. Still, he labored beyond exhaustion, perhaps chasing ghosts of former betrayal. One clear morning, a horn blast echoed from ramparts. 3 notes, riders approaching under peace banner. Robb and Catelyn climbed parapet. Below waited a column in crimson and gold, escorting a white cart. At its head rode Sir Adam Marbrand, helm tucked under arm. He hailed, "In honor of treaty, we return the Lady Sansa Stark to her kin." Behind him, Lady Sansa sat straight-backed upon a palfrey, winter mantle of gold and ivory. She looked thinner, eyes older. Snowflakes caught on auburn hair. Catelyn's cry carried along the wall. Gates groaned open. Mother and daughter collided in tears. Robb embraced them both, promise fulfilled. The realm spun, yet here love stitched wounds. That night, a feast of oat bread and venison stew warmed Great Hall. Minstrels plucked harps, banners of Stark, Tully, Mormont, Glover, Umber hung together. Yet amid laughter Robb watched shadows flicker, mind weighing tomorrow's storms. Tywin would not rest while his pride bled. Stannis licked wounds in Dragonstone. Bolton men still prowled dread-fortified keeps. Later, alone in the Godswood, Robb knelt before Hearttree. Snow drifted soft like ashes. Grey wind lay nearby, licking healing flank. Robb whispered, "Father, guide me. I won a bridge, lost a kingdom, saved a home, but winter is only beginning." In the hush, he thought he heard rustling leaves murmur. The pack survives. He rose with new steel in spine. Spring lay buried under tons of ice. Beyond the wall, white shadows mobilized. South, lions plotted, krakens regrouped, dragons dreamed across the narrow sea. But at Winterfell, the wolves endured. Walls charred yet standing, hearts scarred yet beating. Their howl curled beneath frosted stars, a promise carved in bone. Winter may come with fangs bared, but the North remembers, and the North will not kneel again. Oh, Ka. Winter's breath seeped through cracked mortar even after the walls were patched, creeping into every chamber of Winterfell like an unseen tide. Smoke curled from rebuilt chimneys, carrying the scent of pine logs and wet snow. Men worked by torchlight long after dusk, hammers ringing as though forging a heartbeat for the battered keep. Yet silence hovered in the Godswood where the red leaves had fallen and crisped beneath the weight of frost. Even the Hearttree's sigh felt subdued, as if the old gods themselves paused to study what lingering wounds lay open beneath the snow's pale shroud. Sansa Stark walked those quiet paths each dawn, fingers tucked beneath a sable-lined mantle, feeling the air bite her cheeks. No handmaid trailed her. Trust was still a fragile blossom in Winterfell's gardens, and she welcomed solitude. In King's Landing music had filled halls with melodies sweet as poison. Here caws of distant ravens served as song. She knelt before the Hearttree, placing a single winter rose upon its roots. "For Father," she whispered inwardly, "and for all I once believed unbreakable." Sap gleamed dark where the face wept, mingling with snowmelt. Behind her, footsteps crunched. She rose to find Bran approaching, his chair guided by Mira Reed, summer loping ahead. Bran's hazel eyes reflected torchlight from distant ramparts. The boy's gaze felt deeper now, not merely thoughtful, but old, like some slow river seeing far beyond its banks. "Brother," Sansa greeted softly. "Sister." Bran's smile appeared. Shy, but genuine. "The snows will lift soon. The crows fly north, and summer is restless." Sansa nodded. "Restless worlds do not wait for summer." Bran touched a gnarled root. "I dream of a door, carved in ice. Something knocks. Slow, patient. We must bar it stronger than stone." His voice trembled with a chill not born of winter air. Sansa brushed frost from Bran's shawl, heart aching at his burden. "Doors are guarded by hearts together," she said. "We'll keep watch." From the crypt's thunder of hooves echoed faintly, Robb drilling cavalry in the yard beyond, testing recruits each morning. The sound filled Sansa with pride and fear in equal measure. She worried for him in ways she never had as a child, watching his tall shape pass torchlit halls, shoulders weighed by kingship and the memory of lives severed by sword. Robb sparred beneath a pale sun whose light felt thin as old parchment. Breath plumed as he traded blows with Great Jon, wooden practice swords crackling on iron-bound shields. When he misstepped, still favoring the wound Ramsay's dagger had opened, Great Jon barked laughter and clipped his helm. Robb grinned through sweat, refusing to yield. Around them new levies watched wide-eyed, 60 lads from White Harbor and Deepwood Motte and Barrowton, each gripping hand-me-down blades. They saw not a king but a wolf lord, who bled and laughed and pushed beyond pain. That stirred loyalty deeper than carved thrones. As training dispersed, bannersmen came bearing scrolls sealed with green wax. Robb stripped one open. Scanning. "Stannis," he muttered, brow furrowing. He beckoned Catelyn and his council into the mead hall, still smelling of fresh-cut pine. Stannis' letter, terse as a whetstone, requested northern ships. The Blackwater defeat had cost him half his fleet, though wildfire burned more men than swords. In exchange he offered formal recognition of the king in the north and grain. From Stormlander storehouses come spring. Davos Seaworth's hand had penned a postscript. The cold winds rising demand old grudges die. The croup scratch of Davos quillmarks spoke of a man writing in lamplight after long days. Roose Bolton's chair sat empty. Ravens said he fortified the Dreadfort under claim of hunting rogue ironborn. Robb welcomed the absence. He looked to Lord Wyman Manderley, flesh ample beneath silvered mail. White Harbor's docks sit thick with timbers. How many hulls by thaw? 3 longships, 2 carracks, hastily built, Manderley answered, beard tipped with frost. More if we trust green crews. Trust is snow underfoot, Galbart Glover warned. Beautiful, until it hides an axe hole. Robb drummed fingers on oak table. We cannot fight every front alone. A pact with Stannis buys time. I shifted toward Catelyn, who studied parchment lines as though they might rearrange. Her silence signaled caution, not refusal. Later that evening Robb found her in Ned's solar, firelight painting amber across her cheeks. Wolves adorned the mantle. Carvings Eddard had once whittled nights he could not sleep. Robb spoke low. I know your doubt. But alone, the north is stag at bay. Catelyn closed her eyes. We have just reclaimed home. To gamble alliances so soon. Every hour Tywin sharpens claws. Catelyn rose, placed a hand on his bandaged arm. Then we forge alliances stronger than fear. Yet see beyond swords, grain, roads, healers, hearts. Robb felt the weight of those words settle like fresh snow. Silent, undeniable. He bent to kiss her brow. I will remember. Days bled into weeks. Snow at last ceased to fall, though drifts stubborn as Bolton's lingered in courtyards. Masons hoisted new stones above gatehouses, carving runes of luck into lintels. The forge roared again, fueled by wagon loads of charcoal from Wolfswood. Gendry, the smith boy Arya once befriended, arrived with a band of Brotherhood deserters seeking honest coin. His hammer sang on anvils, shaping helm crowns that curved like wolf ears. Soldiers queued for his work. In the library, walls still scorched, Sansa oversaw copying of half-burned volumes, guiding scribes to salvage histories of kings of winter and Herbal's Maester Luwin cherished. She ordered new vellum from White Harbor, and ink brewed thick with lamprey bile, counting each sheet against the ledger. Knowledge, she told the scribes, is a sword no fire can dull, if tempered in enough minds. Bran spent hours with the reeds and old Nan's tales, mapping dreams onto parchments, drawing crude circles where weirwoods sang loudest, and marking paths ravens followed. When Robb visited, Bran explained in earnest tones. The old roots knit beneath rivers and roads. If we guard the knots, we guard the North's spirit. Robb listened, half puzzled, half believing. Arya's name hung unspoken at meals. Rumors placed her anywhere from Lys to the neck. Sansa clung to faith. Catelyn prayed in Sept and Godswood alike. Robb dispatched hawk-fast riders down the King's Road with sketches and coin, promising lordships to any man who returned the wolf girl safe. One crisp morning riders arrived from White Harbor, bearing Prince Rickon's shaggy direwolf shaggy dog, wild-eyed but unharmed, and a scroll from Lord Wyman's younger son, Waelys. It told how Rickon slipped from Winterfell during siege chaos, escorted by Osha and Shaggy Dog southward through snowstorms, reaching White Harbor after skirmishing with brigands. Wyman gave them refuge and awaited guidance. The news swept relief through the castle. Catelyn wept. Sansa laughed through tears. Bran smiled with secret satisfaction. Robb sent orders. Keep Rickon hidden in Newcastle's deepest halls until roads proved safe. In gratitude he promised Manderley men's seats at his war council and rights to half Bolton lands once reclaimed. Manderley's reply returned swift. The North remembers, and White Harbor stands the watch. Tywin Lannister did not sleep easily in Casterly Rock. Over the oceans of gilt coin in his vaults he paced, reading reports. Bolton dead, Winterfell held, Stannis still breathing, though cut. Greyjoy remnants riding his western shores again. Worse, Highgarden courted alliance with Joffrey yet sent shipments north, wheat, barley, salted pork. Gold bought many things, But loyalty purchased with bread cost less and endured longer. One night, he summoned Qyburn from Harrenhal, now master of darkest arts. "You promised me a weapon." Qyburn bowed low. Sir Gregor rises. He feels less pain than stone, desires only the kill. He stands ready. Tywin's lip curled. "Good. Dispatch him south to root remnants of Stark outriders." Qyburn inclined his head. "Ace, you command." On black horses, the mountain rode with silent knights of Qyburn's order, steel-masked, sigil-less. They cut travelers on the Gold Road, burned farmsteads that flew direwolf banners. Each corpse left flayed and lion-branded sowed confusion. Northmen blamed Bolton stragglers, bolstered suspicion of lingering traitors. Misinformation, Tywin's favored blade. Across the sunset sea, Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen watched her dragons circle Astapor's harbors, and measured letters from Westeros pirates. Talk of a northern king keeping lion and stag at stalemate. Her advisors urged caution, but the thought of fractured thrones nourished embers in her heart. One day she would cross, wings casting shade upon war-torn kingdoms. For now, she sharpened unsullied discipline and studied Westerosi maps, noting ports where wolves still howled. Even far away their song reached fire-kissed shores. At Winterfell's courtyard the first buds of snowdrop pierced crusted banks. Winter's whisper eventual thaw. Catelyn smiled, recalling her girlhood at River Run when such flowers heralded river ice cracking and fish runs. Yet here, deeper north, they served as reminder that seasons turned slow but inexorably. She stood with Sansa upon battlements, watching drills and morning sun. Knights from White Harbor raised fresh naval banners, seahorse and silver net, beside direwolves and trout. Catelyn spoke. "Hope sprouts like these flowers, fragile, persistent." Sansa shielded eyes from glare off snow. "Hope must be guarded." She fingered a ring Joffrey once forced upon her, sapphire now dull. She would melt it for coin to feed refugees, she decided. Thunder of hooves below announced a new arrival. Sir Brynden Tully rode through gates covered head to heel in road dust. He swung down, gray beard frosted. "River Run holds," he reported, unclasping Catelyn in fierce embrace. "But lions scratch. Edmure weds Rosalind Frey in fortnight to keep bridge open." Robb raised brow. "Walder's price climbs." Blackfish snorted. "Old toad counts coin by daughters. But Edmure sees debts repaid in peace." Catelyn hid unease. Walder's word was rope woven from threads rotten within. Messages piled like snowdrifts. Storms tearing the wall's watchtowers. Whispers of giants glimpsed at Queenscrown. Sell-sail Dramans gathering in Gullet commanded by Lyseni warlocks. All pointed to one truth. Conflict multiplied like ravens. One night, in midwinter, Robb convened a secret council deep in the crypt. Flickering torchlight scored granite faces of ancient Stark kings. Bran sat enthroned in Hodor's broad shadow. Sansa, Theon, Mira, Jon Meyer, of the Rangers newly arrived with tidings from the Wall, and the Blackfish all gathered around carved direwolf sarcophagus lids. Jon Meyer's voice rasped with road dust. Lord Commander Mormont led ranging beyond the Frostfangs. Only tattered ravens came home, speaking of dead things that walk. Brothers flee. Castle Black holds 200 souls at most. Robb's fist closed. The South squabbles, while the true enemy rises. He surveyed faces illuminated by torch halos. "We must unite North Riverlands, Vale, even Baratheon if need. A summit at Moat Cailin when roads clear. We will swear each to stand against night." Blackfish nodded. "Summon banners with promise bigger than crowns. Survival. But crowns hold pride," Sansa reminded. "And pride blinds." Robb's reply was soft. "Then we tear cloth from their eyes." They sealed pact beneath crypt's stone kings, carved watchers of winter deep, each member pressing palm to frosted marble. Bran's small fingers lingered longest, eyes milky with vision. Spring's first true melt cascaded down foothills, turning river ice to grinding flows. Maester's charted comets flaring red over broken nights. Sailors called them dragon's breath. Ravens flew like black snow across skies. At Moat Cailin, ancient towers rose from peat like rotten teeth. Robb rode through gates still charred from Greyjoy siege, banners whipping above timber palisades freshly erected. Lords filtered in. Manderley, Glover, Serwyn, Tallhart's heir, Karstark's cousin, though not Lord Rickard, still nursing grievance over Jaime's captivity. From the Vale came Sir Roderick Arryn, bastard of the Bloody Gate, bearing token courtesy but no knights, Lysa Arryn too fearful to commit. From the Barrowlands arrived Lady Barbary Dustin, black-clad widow of Eddard's former friend. Her keen eyes followed Robb with unreadable intent. They met in the tower hall where moss dripped from cracked ceilings. Discussion ran long, tempers frayed. Karstark envoy argued for vengeance on Tywin before all else. Lady Dustin demanded Bolton lands for herself. Only Manderley spoke passion for the wall. When voices rose to shouting, Robb stood, slammed sword pommel on table. Silence fell. "The dead gather," he said. "Their number cares not for our titles or coin. They will flood south when snows melt at the wall, and every petty quarrel will feed them." He unrolled hide scraped clean and sketched rough outline. Wall, Winterfell, the neck, beyond. We muster at the last river in 2 moons. Every house brings half its men, half its grain. Those who refuse will answer before the old gods, and me. His voice did not shout, yet stone seemed to listen. Some grumbled, most bowed heads. Oaths sworn on ice and iron rang. Later, by firelight, Catelyn asked if he feared empty promises. Robb answered, "Fear breeds only if left alone. I'll send Grey Wind to each holdfast to taste loyalty." She smiled sadly. Father's steel and mother's wisdom fused in him. In Casterly Rock, Tywin read of Stark's summit from spies. He chuckled, a dry scrape. The boy crowns himself savior of realms. He penned orders. Hightower galleys sail to Torrhen Square, raid supply lines. Qyburn's black knights cut throats along the King's Road. Gold flows to Karstark coffers to stir dissent. War, he mused, is fought with rumors and hunger as much as swords. One messenger brought sealed scroll from Dorne, Prince Doran neutral but sympathetic to northern grievance. Tywin sneered. Sympathy seldom crossed deserts, spears did. Yet he felt the realm bending like a sapling toward fracture line Starks opened. He must snap it before shape held. Thus he dispatched Sir Gregor, with 50,000 sellswards, to seize Harrenhal anew. Anchor, eastern flank. He courted the Tyrells with whispers of stews and thrones. Let Marjorie wed Joffrey. Let roses choke wolves under velvet. Cersei balked, but the Iron Bank of Bravos favored stable south trade. Coin pressured crowns. In those same weeks, Arya Stark crouched beneath apple crates in a Braavosi trader's keelboat, listening to gulls and speaking Valor Morghulis to herself, like prayer. The kindly man who ferried her demanded coin. She gave him stolen ruby brooch, gift once from Sansa. He laughed, accepted. She thought of home, of Robb's direwolf banner glimpsed from far off. Perhaps by next winter she would stand beneath its shadow again. But first, she must cross seas of faces, wearing names like cloaks. Snowmelt swelled the last river until it roared milk-white between banks. Camps sprouted along its bends. Green tents, brown huts, roaring cookfires, banners whipping, sunburst of Karstark now frayed, moose of Hornwood, white bear of Mormont. Supplies arrived, grain, dried apples, salted hare. Maesters counted measures, quills scratching like mice. Squires dug latrines. Robb inspected ranks astride a grey gelding, cloak of direwolf fur leveling his shoulders. He greeted each lord with handshake or nod. Some measured him skeptically until Grey Wind's silent step reminded them whose teeth ended Bolton's terror. That night he stood before assembled thousands, torches rippling. Bran beside him, Sansa, Maester Walken reading oaths. Robb's voice carried, "When the dawn beyond the wall breaks, we will meet it as one. No lion's claw will aid us, no stag's tine, only the teeth of winter and the steel we wield." He raised sword, torches answered in arc of flame. Hearth after hearth along camps echoed vows. Men clasped arms. Women sharpened arrowheads. Children looked up, eyes reflecting firelight like tiny stars. But in the skirling pass above the frostfangs, the wind howled across jagged ice. Tormund Giantsbane rallied free folk, shouting of a horn to topple the wall. Giants roared agreement, mammoths stamping. Farther back, a figure cloaked in ragged black watched, yellow eyes like embers and skin pale as moonlit bone. The Night's King? Some whispered. Others named him only Other. Whatever his title, his presence stilled the fiercest wildling's laughter. He lifted one hand and snow gusted, swirling in shapes of claws. At Castle Black, the night rang with hammers. Jon Snow, bastard of Winterfell, now Lord Commander in Mormont's place, oversaw repairs, though stores ran thin. Each day he gazed south, wondering if ravens reached Robb, if brothers still sang. Each night he watched north, counting torches of wildlings and shapes beyond torchlight that made no sound. One gray dawn a horn blast thrice sounded, long night's herald. Jon climbed icy steps to top of the wall. Mist churned below. Out of that mist broke shapes more bone than flesh, riding dead horses whose hooves made no crunch. Their eyes glowed cerulean. They held no banners, only ancient cold. Behind them thousands of free folk surged, desperate to escape what followed. Jon whispered to Old Bear's memory, "We hold or die." He sent ravens, every last one, south. The night rises. Send fire and steel. In Winterfell's solar, the raven struck shutters with frantic wings, bleeding from frostbite. Maester Walken unrolled thin parchment inked in haste. He hurried to Robb mid-council. Silence grew heavy as King read. Bran's chair creaked. He looked at Robb, pale. Robb's voice came soft. "The dead ride. The wall is breached at the gorge." "Menekshan." Gasps, Dodum. Manderley's cup clattered. Sansa gripped table. Grey John found words first. "Then we ride north, not south." Robb breathed once, twice. "We ride tonight." No one questioned. Plans forged for storms and a river run faded like spring mist. The north would stand first or fall forever. Messages flew calling every holdfast. Muster all able, send ravens to Vale, Riverlands, even Casterly Rock. Life or death leaves no neutral ground. In the yard, smiths quenched swords in oil. Sparking hiss like serpents. Gendry hammered until arms failed. Sansa delivered bundles of fletched arrows. Her hands blistered, but determined. Bran closed eyes and whispered through roots, calling quiet ones of forest to arms. Children of old songs stirred. Catelyn walked walls as snowfall returned, light yet persistent. She touched stone, remembering Eddard's steady gaze, and how he once said true danger united enemies. She wished his voice could guide Robb now. Instead she whispered to wind, "Guide him home again." Fires glowed across northern sky, beacons lit on watch hills, each answered by another. Wolves howled in dark. Armies formed columns. Riders, spearmen, archers, bundled in furs. Carts laden with pitch casks, dragonglass daggers forged from obsidian shards that Mance Raider once traded down the Torhen's Square market. Samuel Tarley's treatise on whites, delivered months earlier, was copied and read aloud by hearthfires. Robb donned chainmail cloak stitched with overlapping leather plates like gray scales. On his breast, silver direwolf head. He embraced Bran, brushed hair from Sansa's cheek, clasped Catelyn's shoulder. "I will return," he said. She managed a nod, though her eyes shone. The last river road shook as hooves set off. Gray wind led howl-cutting dawn. Columns followed, banners snapping. Direwolf, trout, bear wolf, trout, bear, seahorse, giant, stag of Carhold, even kraken flag of Theon's volunteers. Above them, falcons flew. Glovers trained gerfalcons bearing messages. Snowflakes kissed steel. As they advanced north, past White Knife, past the Weeping Water, refugees joined, wildlings coaxed south by ravens, washerwomen with hatchets, hunters with boar spears. Every soul who understood what marched behind free folk came. At Long Barrow, A sentry galloped up. "Your Grace, golden banners ahead, lion standard." Tension rippled. Scouts returned. Sir Jaime Lannister himself rode with 2,000 knights and 3,000 foot, mailed in crimson.it. They carried carts of lamp oil and forged scorpions. Robb halted his vanguard. Grey wind paced, growling. Snow fell heavier. Ahead, Jaime removed helm, golden hair matted with sleet. He spurred forth beneath white flag. Robb met him halfway, sword sheathed. "No tricks," Jaime called, voice flat. "The North's enemy stands before us both. My father seeks truce, but quibbles. I was never fond of quibbles. I bring steel and good men. Take them or slay us now and lose all hope." "Bah." Robb studied him, thoughts racing. Why trust lion claws suddenly wrapped in fleece? Jaime's laugh held no mirth. "I've no love for butchers' sons riding corpses, nor fancy my head joining theirs. Besides," he shrugged, "I owed your sister a kindness. Consider debt paid." Behind Robb, Greatjon whispered, "A lion in sheep's wool still bites." But Robb lifted hand. "Ride with us, Kingslayer. If you betray, my wolf feasts on Lannister heart." Jaime saluted with 2 fingers. The armies merged, forging unnatural line, crimson side by side with gray. Above, flurries thickened. Sky bruising. At the wall, Jon Snow marshaled torches along rampart, eyes stinging from soot. Tormund's horn sounded retreat. Wildlings pouring through shattered gate, women, children, warriors wounded. Brothers opened ranks letting them pass, then closed. 700 ranging men to defend against what followed. They saw first the dead elk, antlers rimed in frost, pulling sleigh of bone, then ranks of silent whites, eyes blue, armor patched with ice. Behind them, white walkers on skeletal horses raised spears of crystal that glimmered moonlight. And at their rear, a tall figure in armor of midnight starlight, crown of frozen spines, the Night King. He raised hand. Wind died. Snow fell no more. Suspended mid-air like motes, a sound issued, not scream nor roar, but deep chime of rhyme cracking across worlds. Torches guttered, half extinguished. Jon drew Longclaw, Valyrian steel shimmering. Ghost crouched bristling. "Loose," he shouted. Arrows flaming soared. Some fizzling before hitting, others striking whites to little avail. A few dragonglass points shattered walkers, exploding in icy shards. Brothers cheered. Then the horde advanced. Distant, Robb's host crested a ridge south of the wall. They saw glow of fires, heard faint horn. Urgency gripped. Robb turned to Jaime. "Ride it, Van. Cut through any dead that breach. The more swords the wall has, the longer she holds." Jaime smirked. "Always wanted to defend a wall instead of drop from it." They spurred. "Miles ahead, Bran." Safe within litter borne by Hodor and reeds, opened milky eyes. He whispered to ravens swirling overhead, and in answer the birds wheeled north, thousands blackening sky like ink thrown upon snow, diving into ranks of dead hacking sight lines, startling horses. Maester Walken notched final arrow of dragonglass. Catelyn at Winterfell prayed for dawn. Atop the wall, ice cracked as the Night King's power seeped, splitting battlements in jagged fissures. He raised spear, flinging it like comet. It killed 7 men, froze their blood mid-shout. Jon charged, parrying blow of another walker, Valyrian steel sparking shower of blue shards. A horn blast echoed from the south. Robb's forces galloping across haunted forest, torches blazing. Wolves howled. Horns bellowed, 1,000 strong. Whites turned at fresh sound. Jaime's cavalry slammed flank, red cloaks flashing. Robb's infantry formed shield walls. Spears braced. Battle erupted across frozen plain. Firepots hurled, setting dead ablaze. Gendry's dragonglass axes cleaved, Umber giants wrestled undead bears. Theon loosed arrows with Karstark rangers, each shaft whispered, "For Winterfell." Sansa, back in Winterfell's tower, directed trebuchet crews flinging pitch casks beyond wall gap, guided by raven signals. Night longest seemed to stretch into eternity, only flashing of steel and green wildfire illuminating. The wall groaned. Bran, miles away, slipped into weirwood trance, mind diving beneath roots to ancient cold. He found a memory older than human tongues, the children forging obsidian with dragonflame. He reached, summoned heat deep within earth. Atop battlefield fissures widened, from them welled steam and sulfur glow. Ice cracked. An old forgotten vent burst, spewing flame that danced black-orange. Walkers nearest screamed, glass-shattering shrieks, shattering to crystalline shards. Whites collapsed lifeless. Jon saw opening. He sprinted, ghost beside, straight at Night King who turned slowly, blue eyes swirling storms. Night King lifted sword of starlight. Jon met it with longclaw dotted. Impact. Shook ground. Frost raced up Jon's blade, but Valyrian steel glowed hot. Sparks of red and blue showered. Grey wind barreled in, biting at Night King's leg, teeth glowing with flame conjured by Bran's root magic. The ancient cold staggered. Robb lunged. Sword swinging in tangent arc. Jaime mirrored from other side. Twin blades struck Night King's arms, severing crystal weapon, sending shards spinning. Bran's ravens dive-bombed, pecking crown of ice spines. Night King reached clawed hand for Bran's presence, as if sensing him through weave of magic. Bran pushed deeper, channeling heat of summer memories. Arya chasing cats, Rickon laughing, Ned smile, Catelyn's lullabies. Warmth blazed along tree roots. Surged into battlefield. Night King cried, sound like glaciers calving, then split apart from within, fractures webbing luminescent. He exploded in burst of hoarfrost that swept outward in gentle bloom. Instantly the whites collapsed, inert. Silence fell heavy, broken only by crackle of flames and horses whickering. Snowflakes resumed their fall, gentle, ordinary. Dawn rose behind the wall's scarred remains, painting sky blush gold. Bodies of dead and undead littered expanse, steam rising in columns. Survivors gathered, Black brothers, wildlings, Northmen, Lannister knights. They stared at each other in shared disbelief. Jon leaned on Longclaw, eyes searching for Robb. He found his brother kneeling beside Grey Wind, whose flank steamed where magic burned, but the wolf lived. They clasped forearms, hearts thundering. "Brother," Jon said, voice cracked. Robb pulled him into embrace. "Brother." Differences melted like frost. Jaime approached, arms slung by Maester. "Well, Stark. Seems I fought for right side this time." Robb nodded, genuinely grateful. Lion's courage fed by wolf's grit. Realm will remember. Damn tea. Crows circled overhead, their cries oddly joyous. They burned the dead in pyres stretching leagues. Ash snowed black upon white. Songs lifted, dirges of night watch, laments of the north, even a truncated ballad of rains of Castamere, offered by a contrite westerling minstrel, until great Jon tossed ale at him. Council assembled at Molestown Chapel hastily cleared of rubble. Robb, Jon, Jaime, Tormund, Stannis, who'd ridden north after learning of breach, Manderly, Karstark envoy, wildling spearwives, and Samwell Tarly armed with tomes of lore. They debated. Rebuild wall or abandon? Send ravens to south proclaiming threat ended? Or warn that magic could rise elsewhere? Jon argued wall must endure. Dead may return if night's secrets still breathe. Stannis vowed men and coin. Jaime pledged Lannister gold. Tywin be damned. Manderly offered ships to ferry granite from Skagos quarries for repairs. Robb proposed forging unity. Watch not sworn to realm but to life itself. Black and gray cloaks side by side. Agreement forged under cracked beams. New pact of last hearth, signatures pressed in wax before dawn's second light. Realm's first union of houses once at war, sealed with Valyrian steel shard dipped in Night King's dust. They called Project Dawn Shield. Symbol that night's longest terror forged unbreakable shield. Weeks later, in Winterfell's great hall, survivors feasted. Tables groaned with roast venison, onion broth, lemon cake. Sansa oversaw. She laughed freely. Catelyn, eyes bright, thanked men and women from every house. Bran told Reed children's tales to wildling pups. Theon strummed harp strings, song faltering but sincere. Outside, dwarves carved new statues. Wolf and crow standing together. Robb stood at dais, goblet raised. The night bent knee to living. We prevailed by standing shoulder to shoulder. Let no petty crown sunder what frost and flame have tempered. Cheers rolled like thunder. He turned to Sansa, offering second goblet. She lifted, voice ringing. The North remembers, and now the North forgives. Applause echoed. Even as laughter rang, ravens roosted high, carrying word to Dorne, Highgarden, Casterly Rock. Some would chafe at new alliances, others would seek place within. But seeds of unity sprouted, fragile yet determined, like snowdrops in thawing earth. In the quiet after revelry, Robb walked Godswood with Jon and Bran. Moon glittered on fresh bark of heart tree. Sap no longer bled. Jon asked softly, "What now?" Robb breathed cold air sweet with pine. "We mend, we share harvest, we watch skies, and if war of men returns, we answer together, not alone." Bran looked north where Aurora danced faint. "Door is sealed, for now, but world spins. We must keep stories alive, remind children why walls stand." They clasped wrists beneath red leaves. Somewhere distant a lone direwolf howled, not in warning but in triumph. Its echo broke across new-fallen snow, rolling into valleys, across rivers, through forests where spring buds waited under frost. Life, stubborn as wolves, would rise again. And in that howl rang pledge unspoken, that no matter which banners fluttered or crowns glittered, when true night threatened, the pack would answer, teeth bared, hearts united, forever the song of Winterfell echoing across ages. K. The snows that followed the long night battle were gentler than those that had preceded it, falling like sifted flour rather than iron shot, and when they melted upon warm stone walls, they left dark trails that looked almost like new mortar. Winterfell's gates no longer groaned. New hinges, forged by Gendry's tireless hammer, swung silent and sure, and the watchers who stood atop the crenellations found themselves lulled by the hush of a land catching its breath. Yet beneath that hush sat the clamor of decisions deferred, grudges merely plastered over, debts of blood neither forgiven nor forgotten. Evening council sessions stretched until dawn's gray light seeped through arrow loops. Diplomatic couriers arrived on horses flecked with foam, demanding seals and answers. Petitioners with burnt farms queued behind them, seeking timber and seed. Every hearth, every corridor thick with the smell of boiled pine pitch and wet wool, felt like a beating artery of some vast body too bruised to rest. Robb Stark seldom slept in his bedchamber anymore. Nights he prowled the ramparts, cloak snapping in wind, counting torch posts between Moat Cailin and the wall, and dividing what little grain remained in stores by the mouths still arriving from shattered villages. Sometimes he paused in the Godswood, listening for his father's voice, for the whisper of weirwood leaves that once comforted him in childhood. But the old god spoke seldom now. It was Bran who heard them, Bran who dreamed of roots tangled deep under ice crust, Bran who woke with words from a language older than breath, and pressed those words into the wax of council candles before their flames could swallow them. One such dawn Bran summoned Robb, Jon Snow, and Sansa to the library, still charred at the rafters, parchment strewn across a long trestle like bones of some flayed creature. Mira Reed and Samwell Tarly hovered nearby, the former sharpening a frog spear, the latter thumbing notes on shattered spells. "Rivers run black in my dreams," Bran began, voice thin yet sharp. Not with ink, but with shadows. Something stirs beneath the dread fort. Something Roose never understood. Or perhaps did. He slid a map forward, the north, sketched in charcoal and ash. Tiny concentric circles marked along the course of the weeping water, each ring annotated in Bran's shaky script. Whispers of crypts older than men, sigils of an extinct house named Whitewood. I saw doors sealed in skins, runes glowing red. The dead we fought were but one branch. Another root writhes here. Sansa's breath shuddered. I thought the bastard's corpse burned. It did, Mira said, unsmiling. But dead things rise when sorcery lingers. Jon leaned over Bran's shoulder. You think remnants of the Night King's magic bled south? Or were always there? Sam murmured, pushing spectacles up his nose. The children told of caverns under the weeping water where first men bargained with ice. Maudlin talk, I thought, but your dreams increasingly mirror lost lore. Robb exhaled, frost blooming. Another war so soon. His gaze flicked to a letter cracked with red wax. Tywin's cursive, freshly arrived, offering grain convoys from the Reach, in the spirit of newfound peace. Jon followed his eyes. Both knew nothing from the Lion came free. War or not, Bran said, we must send watchers. If the root festers, we cut it before blossoms spread. Jon tapped the map. Dor. Castle Serwyn's garrison sits nearest. I'll ride with 12 black brothers and half the Karstark Rangers. You cannot, Robb countered. The wall bleeds men. Rebuilding watchposts demands every crow we have. And now. Jon's tired smile lacked humor. The wall stands, but cracks remain. If the threat coils within our own borders, patching ice won't matter. Let me go. Argument simmered until Sansa spoke. Let him. The realm needs deeds that show faith between black and gray. Let the small folk hear the bastard of Winterfell, and the king in the north stand shoulder to shoulder still. So decided, ravens fluttered with new orders. Jon's party set out within a day. Wildlings in boiled leather riding alongside sworn brothers in crow-black banners rolled to avoid attention. As they vanished into snows, Robb's chest tightened with foreboding. He clasped Jon's forearm at the gate. Bring back news and yourself. The realm can spare neither. Jon nodded, Ghost pacing near his stirrup. Then they were gone. South of Winterfell, Sansa walked among tent rows, housing hundreds of freed wildling families who had followed Tormund south. She oversaw rationing with ledger bound in calfskin, tracking each portion like a maester balancing tax tallies. Tormund himself stomped through mud, complaining of oats too thin and small clothes too tight. Yet he listened when Sansa spoke of wells and drainage ditches, and his laughter boomed across camps when she threatened to dock ale rations for every latrine left uncovered. The wildlings called her the Red Maid of Winter, half respectful, half teasing. She accepted, remembering courtiers' sneers in King's Landing and finding in coarse jokes a strangely healing salve. On the fourth evening, torches flared along the King's Road, a column bearing the crowned rose banner of Highgarden. Sansa hurried to the courtyard. Sir Brynden Tully arrived first to announce. Lady Margaery Tyrell, escorted by Sir Loras and 100 knights, requests audience. Men muttered. The Tyrells had wed into the Lion's Den, yet here they came north? Robb greeted them beneath stone archway, flanked by Greatjon and Theon. Margaery's cheeks glowed from cold, but she smiled warm as summer, a bouquet of winter roses in hand. Your Grace, she curtsied, voice clear in frigid air. I bring succor, grain, seeds, and maesters skilled in plagues of frostbite. Also, her smile widened, letters sealed by Queen Regent Cersei consenting to joint relief. Robb's brows arched. Cersei and relief seldom share company. We share survival now. Sir Loras said, removing helm. The Reach can harvest thrice what your fields yield in winter. In return you reopen trade routes come spring, iron for plows, timber for casks, and perhaps a place for Tyrell riders in your Dawnshield army. Old guards bristled, alliances tangled easy, but unknotted bloody. Robb ushered them to Great Hall Hearth, where Sansa and Catelyn listened as terms unfolded. In private later, Catelyn cautioned, "Roses conceal thorns." Robb agreed, but grain convoys meant children fed. He signed provisional pact, ink still wet as Margaery presented casks of arbor red and barrels of golden flour. That night, feast tables groaned. Ser Loras sparred with Theon for sport, blunted swords clashing while wildling children perched on barrels cheering. Music spilled. Yet under laughter Margaery whispered to Sansa, "My grandmother sends regards. She says the North's valor iced the Song of Lions, but beware the second verse." Sansa held her gaze. "I write my own verses now." Margaery's grin acknowledged a shared battle of courts, where steel sheathed in silk often cut deepest. 3 weeks passed before word from Jon arrived, though not by Raven. A lone rider staggered through Winterfell gates at dusk. Face ghost white, eyes wide, wearing cloak of the watch and tunic of House Karstark, stained with something blacker than blood. He collapsed into guards' arms, stammering, "The weeping water, cracks, a pit of ice and fire, Lord Commander gone." Robb raced to the great hall where healers pressed hot wine to the messenger's lips. His tale spilled, how Joan's party tracked eerie lights near an abandoned mine south of the Dreadfort, how they found frost-burned corpses bearing Bolton sigils and tunnels, lined in crystal, how within those tunnels Jon faced figures robed in skins, sewn inside out, chanting in tongues unsensed. One touched the ice ceiling, the messenger breathed, and it sang like breaking glass. Shadows poured, wolves howled, but no throats cried. Then the ground split. Fire like green lightning. He shivered violently. I ran. "Jean?" Robb demanded. Swallowed by light, the man wept. Or shadow. I cannot know. Bran's face pale as parchment. He closed eyes, and fell back, gasping. "I cannot find him in the weirwood net," he whispered. A veil blocks sight. Panic rippled, then hardened into grim purpose. Robb assembled strike force. 200 Mormont axemen, Glover scouts, Maester Sam with dragonglass and scrolls. Catelyn gripped Robb's helm before departure. "If magic stirs, steel alone will fail." Robb pressed forehead to hers. "Then we bring hearts of fire." They rode through sleet toward the weeping water, guided by Bran's falcon dreams and the messenger's broken landmarks. Sansa remained to marshal Winterfell, aided by Margaery's logistics quartermasters, who respected her terse efficiency. Approaching the river valley, they smelled brimstone before saw smoke. Pine stands mutilated by some cold blast stood blackened yet rimed with frost. Snowbanks melted into steaming rivulets that froze again mid-slope, winter and inferno entwined. Scouts returned shaken. The river's bed glows beneath ice, like lanterns beneath glass. They descended ravine walls to a half-collapsed cavern where Bolton sigils flapped, charred. Inside, caverns widened into cathedral of blue quartz. Ice crystals sprouted from floor like spears. At center yawned fissure glowing faintly green. Sam whispered, "Wildfire veins under frost." Impossible. Shouts echoed. They found survivors. 2 black brothers pinned under debris, 1 Karstark ranger blinded. They spoke of Jon battling a robed priest whose eyes shone emerald, striking with long claw luminous, of spectral ice wolves leaping from stalactites, of caves shaking until roof sheeted avalanches. After collapse, only silence. Robb led deeper. Gray wind advanced, snarling low. They reached Fisher's Lip, a chasm descending into darkness lined with ice coated in pulsing veins of chartreuse fire. From depths spilled cold air sharp with salt and something older. Robb peered, calling Jon's name. Only echo answered. Bran's ravens traced spiral above. Mira touched Robb's sleeve. "We cannot linger. Quick death sleeps below." "Dane." But Robb tied rope to stalagmite dot. "My brother lies below or not at all." Sam insisted on accompanying, dragonglass dagger clenched. They descended into abyss where green glow intensified, painting shadows upon ice. Whispering voices drifted, half-formed words tugging at sanity. Sam recited lines from the Seven Devout. Robb thought of childhood summers, Ned's tough but warm hand guiding small feet across battlements. At ledge 30 feet down they found John, alive, unconscious, body half buried in crusted ice, long claw embedded beside him glowing faint silver. At his chest rested object, a heart-shaped shard of crystal, half green, half smoky black. Robb yanked free, pain shooting up arm like frostbite. He stuffed it in leather pouch. Sam examined John. Pulse slow, breathing shallow, skin cold, but not corpse blue. Hauling him up required all their ropes. Cave trembled as if displeased. When John reached surface he gasped, eyes flying open, pupils swirling between gray and luminous jade. The door beneath, he rasped. Sealed now, but key still yearns. They carried him from valley as earth rumbled. Behind them, fissure belched plume of frozen steam that crystallized mid-air into daggers. Ice-sealed fissure mouth, burying wildfire glow. Back at Winterfell Infirmary, John slept 3 days. Maesters examined shard, none dared pry detail. Bran touched it lightly. Saw flashes of ancient fist of first men. Obsidian hearts within blue chests. Human grief fueling sorcery. He ordered shard locked in iron chest lined with lead, buried under heart tree roots. The act left him weak, but determined. When John woke, eyes returned normal. He spoke of visions in crystal's grip. A city of black spires beneath frozen sea. Robed beings forging bonds with fire children. Roose Bolton trading skins for secret songs. Night King kneeling to greater frost. Robb listened, understanding they had glimpsed abyss but not slain it. We guard, he said. We teach others to watch cracks. John agreed. Word of Tyrell alliance, of Jones near death. A fissure ceiling drifted across Westeros. In King's Landing, grand wedding of Joffrey and Margaery proceeded under resplendent banners. Yet Queen Cersei's smiles seemed brittle, her eyes often drifting northeast. She wrote letters nightly, quills scratching demands for updates from maesters of Harrenhal and cartographers, charting northern wildfire anomalies. Qyburn, now her secret hand, whispered of hearts of ice and fire, offered to retrieve the buried shard for study. She considered, fingers tapping goblet, but wariness prevailed. The north had teeth, and now lions lacked stomach for frost. Tywin, ignoring Cersei's anxieties, negotiated new trade tax exempting northern grain shipments. Gold flowed again, albeit slower, and small folk saw kings cooperating. Some hailed end of 5 Kings' War. But sellsword companies, newly unemployed, roamed Westerlands, and pirates, in the gullet, preyed on convoys. Peace remained a patchwork cloak unlined. In Bravos, Arya finished her 4th facet of training, learning to weave laughter into daggers, and received word through whisper channel. Pack survived the night. Return when seas mirror still. She pocketed coin of many-faced god and turned eyes west. Spring thaw came early. Snowdrops yielded to pale crocus buds. Wolves shed winter coats. Moat waters lapped against repaired walls of moat kaolin clear enough to reflect dawn shield sigil. Direwolf and crow intertwined under rising sun. At last, river encampment. Soldiers trained not for war, but for rebuilding. Engineers designing aqueducts to channel meltwater for new fields. Smiths forging spades. Robb addressed, gathered captains. We fought to live, now we live to fight hunger, ignorance, and fear. Winterfell will send stonemasons to every burned holdfast, scribes to every orphan. This is the war we cannot lose. Da. Some grinned. Others muttered about costs. But when Manderley ships offloaded grain and Tyrell caravans delivered seedlings, morale swelled. Even Lannister smiths, left under Jaime's command, labored beside northern artisans, grudges hammered into horseshoes. Sansa established a council of hearthwives, spearwives, and septas charged with weaving cloth to clothe both recruits and babes. The endeavor called Winters loom employed hundreds, barter-based, building bonds across cultures. She drafted charters, while Margaery sipped mint tea, advising on guild structure with playful shrewdness. Rivalry mellowed into camaraderie, rose entwined with wolf. Bran's studies produced a tome, On the Paths Beneath Snow and Stone, chronicling Weirwood Network, Dragonglass Properties, faults along Weeping Water. Sam edited, adding Night's Watch annotations. Copies dispatched to Citadel and Queen's Tower at Old Town ignited interest among archmaesters, some scoffing, others pledging expeditions. Knowledge, like thawing ice, spread in rivulets. With roads passable, envoys from Dorne arrived, sandy-haired Sir Daron Martell, leading lizard-lion riders. He presented oranges sweet and fragrant, and letter from Prince Doran. Solidarity with Dawnshield, offer of heated desert tents and obsidian shipments. In exchange he requested seats for sand snakes in Northern War College. Robb accepted. Warriors of sun and frost training together symbolized new era. During feast to honor Dornish arrival, minstrels sang The Long Night's End, lyrics written by Theon Greyjoy, melody by Loras Tyrell's bard. Laughter mingled with tears as verses recounted wolves and lions at wall. Theon's finger plucked strings trembling, but his voice steady. Forgiveness seeped into cracks left by betrayal. Afterwards on ramparts, Theon confessed to Robb, I feared redemption, unreachable. Robb placed hand on his shoulder. Redemption's a road, not a door. Keep walking. Overhead at Aurora shimmered faint green, the sky's echo of shattered magic still healing. Yet far north, beyond Frostfangs, a lone walker fragment crawled through snow, half-formed. The fall of night King had not slain every shimmer of ice magic. Shards lay dormant. It released a shriek lost in gale and froze where it lay, waiting centuries or days for stray travelers' warmth to awaken embers. Balance of realms remained precarious. Bran knew. Tywin knew. He sat by Heart Tree, eyes clouding, sending ravens to swirl along coastlines. But weight of world did not break him. He felt brothers and sisters stand with him in Root's embrace. Old gods murmured of cycles, of watchful hearts. He listened, nodded. Another council convened midsummer, this time beneath banners of multiple sigils stitched as quilt. Wolves, roses, krakens, suns, lions, crows, hung behind days. Robb sat flanked by Jon and Margaery. Sansa and Bran, Jaime and Davos, Sam and Tormund. Catelyn opened proceedings by laying 2 objects upon oak. Shards of ice crown, kept in lead box, and parchments of trade charters. Past and future, she said. Choose future. They voted to create Assembly of Realms, each major house sending speaker thrice yearly to Winterfell, or whichever seat chosen, to settle disputes before swords drawn. Not King's edict, but oath between lords. The Pact of Northern Spring. Tywin, far away, read transcripts delivered by Raven months later. He scoffed but then sighed. A small, strange, almost wistful sound. In his solar, he contemplated how children of war turned scars into blueprints. He penned brief note. Casterly Rock recognizes right of assembly to mediate trade grievances. He sealed it in gold wax. Time passed. Fields greened. Children learned to read alongside wildling pups. The walls breach repaired with granite shipped from Skagos, joints fused by Valyrian glassfire. A secret of Old Town mages who studied Bran's tome. The repaired section glowed faintly blue at moonrise. In fall, Arya Stark arrived on deck of Braavosi Cog, hair cropped, eyes sharp. She met Sansa in Winterfell Hall. Sisters held each other until tears-soaked cloaks. Arya presented coin to Bran. Many-faced god takes back what world owes. Bran merely smiled, as though he'd seen her journey every night in dreams. Robb organized tourney of unity. Archers from beyond wall, jousters of reach, spearwives, even Korth silk fighters. Jon declined the joust, but sparred with Jaime in open ring. Dance of 2 Valyrian blades, until they crossed in respectful salute. Wildling children cheered wineskin prizes. Amid festivities, ravens returned from Citadel, Archmaesters requested Bronze Council to form Collegium of Ancient Magics, dedicated to studying coalescence of ice and fire. The world, once blinded by fear of sorcery, now sought to understand. One hush-lit dusk, Robb walked with Sansa along parapet, overlooking weirwood tops. She spoke of weaving schools. He recounted plans to dredge White Knife for deeper barges. They exchanged quiet laughter over Theon teaching Margaery's handmade spear throw. Wind carried scents of pine and distant cookfires. Robb paused, gazing at horizon. When I won the twins, I thought victory was bending a lion's knee. Now I see victory as teaching lions, wolves, stags, krakens to guard one another. Sansa followed his gaze. Then you have won more than crowns. He smiled sadly. Crowns weigh less these days. Good. Below, courtyard bustled with builders erecting hall-to-house assembly. A mason whistled. Bear and the maiden fair. A wildling girl joined, off-key but exuberant. Light from forge flickered on their faces, forging tomorrow amid sparks. Robb's hand found Sansa's on stone. Spring may fade, he said, and other nights come, but as long as we remember this, unity built on sacrifice, we will weather darkness. Sansa squeezed his fingers. The North remembers. And now, beyond North, the world will. Clouds parted. First star shimmered. Howls rose. Gray wind and ghost together. Summer joining though slowed by age. Their chorus carried over fields, across repaired wall, through valleys where daisies replaced carnage, touching even sea where kraken banners flapped peacefully beside manderly sails. In that moment, no swords clashed, no ravens screamed alarm. Only the song of wolves embracing the night they once feared, promising that should shadows gather again, the pack would gather too. United, resolute, eternal, as stars glinting above the land they bled to preserve. And somewhere deep beneath weeping water fissures, a lone shard pulsed faintly, waiting. But for now, its heartbeat matched that of every living soul across Westeros. Strong, steady, and hopeful.